Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the Minute Waltz fades away, once more it is my pleasure to welcome the many listeners that we have throughout the world, and also the 4 exciting and talented players who are going to partake in the show this week. We welcome back the irrepressible Paul Merton, the witty Peter Jones, the erudite Clement Freud, and the formidable Stephen Fry. Would you please welcome all 4 of them? As usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on the subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. Beside me sits Jane Gibson, who's going to help me keep a score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Radio Theatre in the heart of Broadcasting House, right in the centre, W1A, 1AA district of London. I mention that in case you want to write in. And we begin the show this week with Paul Merton, and the subject, Paul, is flirting. Oh, tell us something about that delightful subject in this game, starting now.
Certainly, Nicholas, you gorgeous creature.
Oh.
My girlfriend always thinks that I'm flirting. If I'm ever to kiss another human being with tongues, or to feel a pert bottom, she considers this flirting. It's outrageous. She has a very jealous nature, because I think the very act of flirting is kind of like a social cohesive glue. It brings us together. We're allowed to flirt with one another in a happy-go-lucky way. Perhaps in the old days we might have had a fan fluttering in front of our face, and we look across the room. There is that rather special person, a shy, coy look downwards, and then a look perhaps over towards the buffet.
And Stephen Fry challenge.
It's just so damn good, but I'm afraid there were two looks.
There were two looks, yes. It was going extremely well, and they were enjoying it. The audience were actually responding to your flirtation.
That's how I'll go out with them if they want. They can get the first round in.
Yes. Right. Stephen Fry had a correct challenge, so he gets a point for that. He takes over the subject, which is flirting, and there are 21 seconds available starting now.
Who was it who said that a woman should always give in straight away, otherwise they're accused of being a flirt? I don't know who he was.
Clement Freud challenge.
I don't know.
What is your challenge within the rules of Just a Minute? Clement, do you have one?
He asked me a question.
Right. He wasn't actually looking at the audience, and none of them responded. No. Clement, we enjoyed your response, so I tell you what I do, as I often do on these occasions. I give you a bonus point for a clever interruption, but as Stephen was interrupted, he gets a point for that. He keeps the subject of flirting. There are 14 seconds available, starting now.
Those smouldering bedroom eyes, those kiss-me-quick ears, those...
And Clement Freud challenge.
3 of those.
3 of those, yes. And Clement, you've got him with the correct challenge of Just a Minute. This time, 9 seconds available. Flirting, Clement, starting now.
I had a friend who flirted and sought medical advice, and the doctor said, "Do you do it often?" He replied, "Infrequent," and the medic said, "Is that 1 word or 2?
Clement Freud was speaking as the whistle went, and whoever is doing that gains an extra point.
In a way, it's one of the sad things about the game, is you can speak for 39 seconds, which is jolly difficult, and not get a point, because you started. It's sort of unfair in a way.
The irony of this show is you can do all the hard work and speak for 59 seconds, and then someone comes in with 1 second ago and gets 2 points. Yeah. It's a tough game.
It is a tough game. It's a tough, brutal, hard game. A game for men and women and others.
But it's certainly not
Still.
Not the traditional game of 2 halves. It's right. No, Peter Jones, will you take the next round? Lovely to hear from you. The subject is mint. Tell us something about it in just a minute, starting now.
Mint is a wonderful herb, and it grows like a weed. If you put it in a garden, it spreads and more or less kills and annihilates all the plants around it. But mint tea is another thing altogether, and I remember having some when I was in Morocco, and we went on a little journey trying to find the desert, which eluded us. But we did... Eventually, we arrived at a tent, and an Arab brought out a cup or mug of mint tea, which he said was very refreshing. And I nearly threw up. In fact, the memory of it now makes me feel a bit queasy. And so I may not be able to go on for the full 60 seconds, because I have to retire hurt and be replaced by somebody else. I can't think who could do it, but it would be nice if they were able to.
That was an example of what Stephen was just saying. I mean, you've been for 52 seconds. All that hard work, and the audience loved it. I mean, huge laughs. And Stephen's got in with a correct challenge with only 8 seconds to go. He takes over Mint and...
Have you got your own watch?
No, I haven't. I feel such a brute.
Yes.
I've got a strong feeling I'm going to repeat the word buttery, so look out, just in case I do. You never know.
No, right.
You never know.
Right. You ready for this?
Yes, I'm
8
ready.
seconds, Stephen, on Mint starting now.
Buttery, of course, the real Mint.
And Paul Merton.
I haven't said it once.
He's about to repeat the word buttery.
I'm sorry, Paul, we can't have psychic challenges. They don't work in just a minute. So Stephen has another point for being interrupted, or an incorrect challenge, actually, and he has 7 seconds on Mint starting now.
The Royal Mint, of course, buttery, produces money and all kinds of things like that.
Peter, you're the only person in this Whoever Plays This Game who gets a round of applause for challenging. And what was your challenge, Peter?
It was repetition. Of buttery.
Oh, buttery, yes! Well, listen, you've got 2 rounds of applause.
Although you didn't allow my challenge, it does prove that I'm psychic.
Yes, it does. Peter, you've got 4 seconds to go on Mint. Starting now.
It's literally where they have a place.
So Peter Jones justifiably got 2 points in that round, and he's now in 3rd place. Well, he's only 1 point behind Clement Freud. Stephen Fry's in the lead. And Clement, your turn to begin. The subject is making a silk purse out of a sow's ear. A long subject, but talk on it if you can. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I think the saying is that you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Therefore, making a silk purse out of a sow's ear would be difficult. I once left in my car a note on the window because I had parked on a double yellow line, and written upon the piece of paper was, "Have run over cat, am consoling owner." I think what you have to do is make the best of a rotten lot, which is what making a silk purse out of a sow's ear probably was intended to convey in the initial saying of that non-axiom.
Peter Jones' challenge.
It seemed to be grinding to a halt.
A fine one to talk, if I may.
Oh, they love each other, don't they? Right. Yes, we interpret that as hesitation, Peter, so a correct challenge. A point to you. 18 seconds available. Making a silk purse out of a sow's ear, starting now.
Well, I suppose it could be done because pig's skin is quite a good kind of leather which you could fashion into a purse, though if it had to be from a sow's ear...
Paul Merton challenge.
Well, I think it's a deviation because the sow's ear isn't made of silk. So you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear.
No, you can't.
So even if you took the sow's ear and made a purse out of it, it would not be... I believe it's a saying that encompasses what I'm trying to say here. Because the purse is silk and the pig's ear is not silk, you cannot make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, in fact.
Well, you can make a pig's ear out of a sentence. Go
We let you go on that one, Paul, because we did enjoy it. But it is a correct challenge, and you have 6 seconds on making a silk purse out of a sow's ear, starting now.
Making a silk purse out of a sow's ear is very difficult indeed.
Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point for doing so, and they're all pretty equal at the end of the round. And Stephen Fry, your turn to begin. The subject, limbering up. Tell us something about that in just a minute, starting now.
What a wonderful phrase, limbering up. I don't know what it implies. A sort of certain amount of oil being applied to the skin somehow. I don't know why I should think that's true, but I do. Girding the loins, a favourite phrase of our beloved Nicholas Parsons, and I use that word, of course, wrongly. It's a kind of phrase, isn't it, limbering up? that you use before contests, races, Olympic events, pentathlons, decathlons. If I wanted to start making a catalogue, I could, but I'm not going to because I don't play the game that way. When I limber up for this game, I tend to try and think of words and try, of course, very hard not to say the word try all the time. I repeated try.
You've actually challenged yourself, Stephen.
A repetition of try, which was just really ridiculous.
I know. Well, you were listening to yourself, at least.
More than anybody else was. And who can blame
So that
them?
is a correct challenge, I suppose, within the rules of just a minute. I've got to give it to you.
Oh, good.
And you have 27 seconds to continue on limbering up, starting now.
Can't really limber down, can you? I don't know why. What does limber mean? I suppose limb with leg.
Peter, challenge.
He doesn't even know the meaning of the word.
Peter, you have limbering up. You have 21 seconds starting now.
I see people limbering up before they go into the park for runs round it. And they stand holding a pole and raising one leg after the other, and then they start running. And
Stephen, you challenge.
Can I have the address and time? Because I want to see this. It sounds very exciting.
You were interrupted, Peter, so you get a point for being interrupted.
yes, of course.
And because it was an incorrect challenge. And you keep the subject. Another point to you. 9 seconds available. Limbering up, starting now.
They always look so unhappy, their faces contorted, and I raise my glass as I look through the window. That's the only exercise I have. And
So Peter Jones was speaking as the whistle went, as well as other points that he gained in that round, and he is now in the lead at the end of that round. And Paul Merton, your turn to begin. The subject, my sixth sense. You've referred to that more than once in just a minute, but talk on it if you can, starting now.
My sixth sense tells me that the Welsh assemblies and the Scottish one...
Clement, you challenge.
Devolution.
Brilliant, Clement, brilliant. We give you a bonus point for that. I wish I could give you 2, but I could then
Give him 2.
No.
Give him one for the Welsh and one for the Scottish.
Very quick challenge, right. But, Paul, you were interrupted, so you get a point for that. You keep the subject 55 seconds. My sixth sense starting now.
I suppose by sixth sense we mean our psychic abilities to see into the future. The mist is...
Stephen Fry, your
The
challenge.
mist has enveloped his mind, I'm sorry.
Yes, it has. So we call that hesitation. 45 seconds available, Stephen, for you on My Sixth Sense, starting now.
My sixth sense is actually not exactly an ability to see into the future. It's an ability to see sideways.
Clement, Paul,
Oh,
challenge.
bother.
Ability, too much ability.
Yes.
What an arse. So sorry.
Thank you, Stephen. If you'd said that earlier, I wouldn't have challenged you.
Paul, you have the subject back of My Sixth Sense, and there are 38 seconds available, starting now.
I see 5 people.
Stephen, challenge.
A repetition of C.
Yes, 35 seconds, Stephen. My Sixth Sense, starting now. And Paul Merton, challenge.
He's thinking it.
Oh, you see, yes, but I didn't repeat, did I? Because
No,
he got it. He's got the same sixth sense as me, and I was transmitting it. Most of the audience got it. Did you not pick it up?
I did indeed, but
Yeah.
the audience were a bit dead.
No, they picked it up. They knew what I was saying.
They've gone home, most
I
of
was
them.
using my sixth sense without
Paul.
repetition or deviation.
I know.
I did hesitate slightly, though. You're probably right.
You were absolutely silent, actually. Paul, I agree with your challenge. 33 seconds. My Sixth Sense, starting now.
Mystic Meg, that charlatan, appears every Saturday night on television saying things like, oh, a man in Peterborough will get something very surprising through the post. But, you know,
Clement challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, well, that's hesitation. 21 seconds, Clement. Tell us something about My Sixth Sense, starting now.
I think people are pretty lucky to have a sixth sense. Those of us who only have 5, 4, 3 or 2 manage to get along famously, whereas a sixth sense, which is, I believe, something which comes to you not from the written page, nor from something which you have read.
Stephen challenge.
Some things, yes.
Some
Sorry,
things,
sorry.
yes.
Yeah.
And you very cleverly or naughtily, whichever way you look at it, got in with 1 second to go. On My Sixth Sense, starting now.
Is rather peculiar and illegal.
So Stephen Fry, speaking of the whistle when, gained an extra point. Now, all three are equal in second place. Behind Peter Jones is still just in the lead. And Stephen Fry, your turn to begin. The subject of rubber plants. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
Of all the tedious, wearisome subjects I've ever been given on this game, I think rubber plants just about sneaks the Garibaldi. I've never heard of anything so absurd in my life. They're strange, green, dusty things people have in the corner of offices, I suppose. Never found them appealing. Is a yucca a rubber plant? That's a rhetorical question. I don't want Clement Freud to interrupt and tell me. They're just dull, strange, peculiar things that I have no interest in whatsoever, and I'm sure very few of the listenership have much, frankly, of a torch or candle to hold.
Paul Merton challenge.
A mercy bid.
Yes, it's a bit of a rubbery subject, isn't it? I agree, yes, but there we are. Paul, 33 seconds, rubber plants, starting now.
Well, rather like Stephen, I find them rather boring objects. I think you do put them...
Clement Freud challenge.
Two rubbers in the first sentence. Rather like Stephen. Sorry.
Yes, all right, Clement. 28 seconds.
Well, that happens to be my word of the week. I've been sponsored by the Rather Council.
Rubber plants is with you, Clement. 28 seconds, starting now.
Rubber plant is a snooker term, and what you do is you...
Paul Merton challenge.
Deviation, no it isn't. A rubber plant is not a snooker, so don't look at me in that bewildered fashion, Nicholas, I'm telling you.
I'm playing for time. I don't think it's a snooker term.
No, rubber plant, no.
No, rubber plant. What is it, Clement?
A snooker term.
I'm going to stick my neck out here.
Give him a chance to speak in his own defence. You can't condemn the man unless he's allowed to offer us a convincing explanation
That's
of why...
what I did ask him to, but he declined.
No, he said it was a snooker term, and then you immediately overran him. He may be
I didn't overrun him. I waited,
what
Stephen.
it refers.
Have you deliberately come to be argumentative?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, rather.
Right.
No, I haven't.
Clement, are you going to just...
No. Not at all.
Let's find out what this rubber plant is.
What is a rubber plant in snooker?
It's a snooker term.
You gave him a chance. Hang him.
Yes. I think the fact he can go no further convinces me that he was bluffing, and you are allowed to bluff in just a minute, but I have to know whether it's right or not. So I give you the benefit of the doubt. Paul, you have 22 seconds on rubber plant, starting now.
Rubber plant is a term used in billiards. When you have the red ball and the white ball up against the cushion, if you can...
Clement, you challenge.
Repetition of ball.
Yeah,
Two balls.
It is all balls.
That's nice, isn't it?
15 seconds, Clement. Back with you. Rubber plant, starting now.
Rubber?
Peter Jones challenge.
Hesitation.
Well done, Peter. In there like a knife, right? And you've got 12 seconds on rubber plant, starting now.
Rubber plant is an expression used by people who don't play snooker. That's the explanation for whatever.
Hesitation, sadly.
I'm afraid so, yes,
dear,
Paul.
yes.
Correct challenge. You've got him with 2 seconds to go on rubber plants, starting now.
Picture the scene. A rubber plant standing...
So, Paul Merton speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point for doing so, and he has moved forward into second place behind Peter Jones, who's still in the lead. And Peter, it's your turn to begin. The subject, when less is more. A bit of a two subject, but talk on it if you can, starting now.
Well, I don't think I can talk on it for a minute, but I think in view of the subject, the less I say, the better.
Paul Merton challenge.
Repetition of think, thereby proving Peter right. You did repeat think. I don't think I can.
Think,
I did, yes.
Yes, I know, right. So, Paul, you got in first. 54 seconds. When less is more, starting now.
This is a term you often hear in theatrical circles where people say you don't need to do a 3-hour show, give them an hour and a half, leave them wanting more. And I believe this is approachable.
Clement challenge, right.
Repetition of hour.
Of hour or
A 3-hour show, 1.5 hour.
42 seconds for you, Clement, on when less is more.
In the restaurant trade, when less is more means that more...
And Stephen challenge.
Bit of a hesitation there.
No, I don't.
No, I was never doing it.
39 seconds, an incorrect challenge. With you, Clement, when less is more, starting now.
You see a greater expanse of plate as there is less food upon it. This is when less is more.
Stephen.
Well, is definitely a word that proves hesitation.
That was hesitation, yeah. Stephen. You've got in there with...
Where was the hesitation?
You said
I gave it to you the benefit of the doubt last time. I give it over to Stephen this time, which is the only fair thing to do. When less is more, 30 seconds with you, Stephen, starting now.
Very kind of you. Of course, in theatrical circles, which Paul was pointing out, we often say in that camp where we have Anton Lesser is Kenneth More. Because those are two actors. It's a rather revolting way of saying it, of course. It also implies the level of performance, that simply underplaying the role rather than screaming over the top in some vast manner can often create a much more likeable, much more realistic effect.
Paul challenge.
Too much more.
Too much more.
Dear.
Yes, so Paul, you got him with 8 seconds on when less is more, starting now.
I want you to imagine a situation. You're a farmer, deep in the heart of Norfolk. You're in the middle of a field.
And Stephen challenge.
I suppose, unless you said the second one was urine, it's 2 years. You're a farmer, you're in the middle of a field, I assume. It's possible. It's possible it wasn't a repetition, but in which case it was simply deviant.
So, correct challenge, Stephen. 2 seconds on when less is more, starting now.
Less is also more in this game we call just a minute.
I don't think this has ever happened in just a minute before. At the end of that round, they are all 4 equal in the same situation. And so, and if you want to know, they've got quite a lot of points between them. Clement Freud, it's your turn to be in. The subject, Charles Dickens. Tell us something about that great man in this game, starting now.
Charles Dickens was born in 1812, which is the date of the Battle of Trafalgar, 3 years before Waterloo. I just thought I would.
Stephen Fry.
No, it isn't. Trafalgar wasn't in 1812, was it?
No, it was 1805,
yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah, 7 years out. Way off. It was the year that Napoleon went to Moscow, hence the Tchaikovsky and everything.
Near enough.
Yeah, quite. Fair enough. 7 years.
So, Stephen, you've got in with 49 seconds on Charles Dickens, starting now.
I feel really awful about that. I think he was born, wasn't he, in Portsmouth or Plymouth or one of those places? Definitely the first one I mentioned.
Yes. You challenge, Peter.
Yes.
Hesitation.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
You definitely said,
Plymouth and Portsmouth. One of those.
He wasn't deviating, he hesitated.
We'll get a lot of letters from the West Country, and they'll all object to that.
Wait a minute, I don't say, have you started? Because I haven't said now yet. Are you working, or are you just chatting?
Working? What do you mean? Tonight?
Are you going on the subject, or were you chatting to me?
I was just chatting.
Oh, that's good.
God knows if there isn't room to have a few personal words. What's the point of flogging myself in a day? It's ridiculous.
It is traditional, which I thought you might know after all this time, Peter, that I do say start now, so we can start the clock going.
You do it beautifully, too.
I know. The reason is we have to start the clock on the now,
right.
Make sure you get the
Poor
acronym.
Jane.
You have the subject, Peter, of Charles Dickens, and there are 42 seconds starting now.
Wonderful writer. And one of the best things he ever did, I think, was a description of his journey to America. He described the cabin and the ship and all the other passengers on it. And it's absolutely riveting. Better, really, than many of the novels that he also penned, and which I've enjoyed over the years many times. And they make films of them, as you well know. And he was an actor, basically, because he really liked to perform and have a little dance on the stage, and he entertained people, and he could make your blood run cold. I won't say he was better than Paul Merton at doing that kind of thing, but he certainly would have challenged him had he been alive.
With that interesting information about Charles Dickens, kept going till the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so. He's equal now in the lead with Stephen Fry, and the other two are just 2 points behind, equal in second place. And we're into the last round, so those interested in points and so forth, it's still anybody's contest. And Stephen Fry, it's your turn to begin. The subject, peeling an orange. Tell us something about that in this game you can, starting now.
Peeling an orange, a procedure at which I am spectacularly incompetent. I tend to push my thumb into the navel, if it's that kind of omphalic fruit, or simply use a knife, really. I don't know if that counts as peeling. I peel after the implement of cutlery has inserted itself into the skin. I pull back
Peter, you've challenged again.
Hesitation.
He did hesitate a long time back. You let him go for quite a while.
Well, I was generous.
Yes, I know. He was generous.
And
after he pushed his thumb...
hear you anyway.
And, after he pushed his thumb in and he hesitated, he thought of the image he created of going into the navel like that. I thought it was quite a sick-making thought. But you got him for hesitation.
I met a man the other day who said he was a naval doctor. I didn't know they specialised that much these days.
Head surgeon.
Really? Right. Any more interesting comments? Right. 32 seconds, Peter, for you on peeling an orange, starting now.
The best way to find out how to peel an orange is to write to that man who writes in the Sunday Telegraph, I think it is, on etiquette. And people write with the most extraordinary problems.
Clement Freud challenge.
Repetition of Stockholm.
Yes, he didn't say Stockholm, but what's in your mind in saying that?
I'd like him to have another point.
It was a novel and highly generous way of playing the game. And,
you asked what was in my mind.
You're right. And he definitely didn't say Stockholm. I was listening very attentively.
He must have another point.
If I did, it was only once.
Well, Peter, you've got 20 seconds to keep going on peeling an orange if you can, starting now.
In Sweden, they peel oranges in an entirely different way because the skin is usually thinner there because of the cold weather, you know, and they don't have a lot to do. But once they've got it off the fruit inside, then they're able to enjoy it with a glass of schnapps or something equivalent that they...
Well, Peter Jones, with a little encouragement from the others, kept going until the whistle went, gained that extra point, and I will now give you the final score. A lot of points were scored, amazing number of points for one show, but very fairly, actually. Clement Freud, Paul Merton and Stephen Fry all finished up equal in second place, but just ahead of them was Peter Jones. So, Peter, we say you're the winner this week. A popular winner, undoubtedly. It only remains for me to say thank you to our four intrepid players of the game, Peter Jones, Stephen Fry, Paul Merton and Clement Freud. We thank them. I thank Jane Gibson, who's helped me with the score. She's blown her whistle beautifully. We thank Ian Messiter, who created the game, our producer and director, Chris Neal, Martha, our recording engineer, and we thank our lovely audience here in the Radio Theatre in London for attending and encouraging us. From them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, goodbye. Hope you enjoyed it. Next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my pleasure not only to welcome our many listeners throughout the world, but also the four exciting and talented players of the game who are going to compete this week. We welcome back one of our most popular and talented players, and that is Paul Merton. We welcome one of our oldest and one of our original players, and that is Clement Freud. We welcome back two who have not played it quite so frequently, but they're equally talented, and that is Graham Norton and Fred MacAulay. And will you please welcome all four of them? As usual, I am going to ask them to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. Beside me sits Jane Gibson, who's going to help me keep the score and blow a whistle when 60 seconds is up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the King's Theatre in the wonderful cultural city of Glasgow. And we're part of Music Live in this great city. And before us we have an exciting, dynamic Glaswegian audience. Who better to start the show in Glasgow? Fred MacAulay. Fred, talk something about breeding porcupines. Well, there's nothing like starting off on an impossible subject. Talk on the subject if you can, Fred, starting now.
I have to confess I'm going to be speaking from a position of complete and utter ignorance because I don't know that much about breeding porcupines.
Graham Norton challenge.
The word just seemed longer, as you say.
Yes. So, Graham, you have a correct challenge. You have a point for a correct challenge. You take over the subject of breeding porcupines. There are 51 seconds available starting now.
A lot of women I know are very jealous of porcupines because for the lady porcupine, childbirth is practically painless compared to the horror of conception. They are known as romantic little beasts. I know this because I read a book once. Honestly, that's true. However, though in the love sort of situation, confusion can arise as a partner whispers, "I'm stuck on you, babe," into the ear. What do they mean? Is it a sweet nothing or a statement of fact?
Clement Freud is challenged. A well-deserved round of applause for your contribution on that impossible subject. But I have to tell you that Clement Freud has got in with only 3 seconds to go, and he takes over the subject of breeding porcupines 3 seconds ago, starting now.
And the woman said, if you don't take those breeding porcupines...
Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point for doing so, and this occasion was Clement Freud, so he's in the lead at the end of the round. Clement, it's your turn to begin, and the subject we have here, very topical, tartan. So talk on the subject of tartan in 60 seconds if you can, starting now.
Sadly, there is no Freud tartan, not even a Mac or O, but...
Full Merton, you challenged.
Sort of hesitation.
A sort of. Yes, more than. But a correct challenge. A point to you for a correct challenge. You have 52 seconds. Tell us something about tartan, Paul, starting now.
It's a shame that Clement says there is no Freud tartan, because my memory of going up to the Edinburgh Festival is no matter what name an American tourist has...
Clement.
Deviation.
Why?
I'm not an American tourist.
I wasn't suggesting you were.
Clement, you're not an American tourist, and he wasn't suggesting you were. I think the audience enjoyed your interjection there, so we give you a bonus point for that. But as Paul was not deviating, he gets a point for being interrupted. He keeps the subject. 43 seconds available. Tartan with you, Paul, starting now.
Hello, I'm from Oklahoma, and my name is Guggenheim. And the people in the tartan shop say, we've got the Guggenheim tartan.
Clement.
Guggenheim, what's your problem?
So, Paul, an incorrect challenge, 35 seconds on tartan starting now.
The McGuggenheims of...
Fred, your challenge.
In fairness.
Yes,
No, he said, no, it wasn't
I buzzed
wrong.
before the S.
No, it was Fred who actually challenged, but no, he put the S on it. You challenged before the S, but that is too keen. So he did say
At that point,
McGuggenheim.
I'd only said McGuggen.
So, Paul, you have another point for an incorrect challenge. You have 33...
I begged it. I didn't buzz in at all.
Your light came on.
Well, be that as it may.
No, it wasn't. It was your light. I'm so sorry. Thank you. 33 seconds with you, Paul. Tartan starting now.
Well, this is rather embarrassing, as I've explored everything I know about tartan, so I'm quite happy to give up this subject any particular...
And Graham, you challenged.
Charity. I'll just take it. I'm not proud.
Paul, you didn't actually hesitate, deviate, or repeat anything. Do you wish to give it up or not?
No.
Right. Right, Graham, give him a bonus point. Paul, it was an incorrect challenge. You have another point, and you have 26 seconds. Tartan starting now.
How can I best describe tartan? It's a kind of pattern.
Fred, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, indeed, and what a statement. Tartan is with you, Fred. Right, let's hear a Scotsman on tartan. 21 seconds, starting now.
Well, you know that there are many different types of tartan. There's Anderson, Macbeth, McTavish. MacAndrew, MacAulay, Stuart, of course, ancient hunting.
Clement challenge.
Repetitive, of course.
Yes. Clement, you have a point for that. You have 11 seconds on tartan starting now.
I think perhaps my favourite tartan is Bakewell tartan cream, but apricot tartan strawberries is another of which I'm very fond indeed.
Clement Freud was speaking then as the whistle died away. Jane Gibson, who sits beside me, blows the whistle, and sometimes she has difficulty summing up enough wind to get the P in the whistle moving at pace. So try just again to give it power, Jane. Go on. We'd love to hear a really powerful one. Yes! And Paul Merton, please take the next round. Vital statistics. Would you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
There were not enough lifeboats on the Titanic. This is a very vital statistic. It mattered a great deal to the people who were on this ship as it set sail from Southampton via Cork to New York. They were there walking around on the promenade deck saying what a beautiful creation this vessel is. How wonderful it is. What's that iceberg doing there? And then having to rush all around while senior officers pointed the various boats that were hanging over the side, and unfortunately the cry was women and children first. I think this is, I don't know where this came from. Who came up with the idea of them
Fred, you challenge first, yes. Hesitation, we interpret that as. Fred, you have 22 seconds. Tell us something about vital statistics, starting now.
Well, as Paul was saying, that was a vital statistic, but the expression is used mainly to describe the inches around a woman's bust or waist or hips, and I don't think that's particularly vital at all. It's hardly likely to make a difference to a life or death situation if your bust happens to be large.
Oh, yes, Graham.
Bust.
Two
busts. And me a leg man.
I know. Graham got in first. And 3 seconds are available, Graham, on vital statistics starting now.
I love statistics. It's with a heavy
Graham Norton was then speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point. Fred MacAulay, your turn to begin. The subject, the new rock and roll. Can you tell us something about that in just a minute, starting now?
Well, the expression rock and roll is usually put together with sex and drugs, so the new rock and roll must be rugby. Because the former England captain seems to spend most of his time
Paul, you challenge first.
Thank you, Paul.
That came from a libel lawyer, that challenge. Hesitation.
Yes, we get that hesitation. 46 seconds, Paul. The new rock and roll, starting now.
A few years ago, stand-up comedy was described as the new rock and roll, and it is often attributed to Janet Street Porter, but it was in fact from the American magazine Rolling Stone that noted that in the 1980s, comedians like Steve Martin and Robin Williams were appearing in big venues, 10,000-seaters, and this is why comedy came to become the new rock and roll, because...
Graham Norton, you challenge.
a comedy thing happening again.
Yes, you talked two comedies, yes. Well listened, Graham, and very sporting, Paul. 24 seconds. The new rock and roll with Graham starting now.
The new rock and roll must not be rock and roll, hence the expression. Therefore, perhaps the new rock and roll is opera.
Paul, you've challenged.
I was challenged so we could hear this rubbish. Oh, it's been informative.
Yeah,
the new rock and roll is not the new rock and roll, because otherwise it's the rock and roll, it wouldn't be the new... What's
He wasn't technically deviating from the subject.
Thank you.
But we did enjoy your challenge.
Thank
so I'll
you,
give you a
Nicholas.
bonus point for that, Paul. And you were interrupted, Graham, so you get a point for that. And you keep going. 16 seconds still available. The new rock and roll starting now.
Opera is the new rock and roll, in my opinion. Now Cher can appear in La Boheme, and instead of singing about her tiny hand being frozen, she can tell us that her large bosom is plastic. I love that woman to the very core of her strange...
Right, Graham Norton speaking then as the whistle went. He's moved forward. He's now equal with Clement Freud in second place behind our leader, Paul Merton. Fred MacAulay is trailing a little and Clement begins the next round. And the subject is nuts in May. Oh, what a delightful thought. Talk on the subject, Clement. 60 seconds if you want to, starting now.
There is a song which goes, here we go gathering nuts in May, nuts in May, nuts in May, nuts in May, nuts in May.
Paul challenge.
Give the record player a kick.
I mean, I do agree there must come a point where you can repeat the subject on the card, but if you repeat it endlessly, I mean, it's a non-event as a show, isn't it, really? And you did it 5 times then, Clement.
No, I repeated it 4 times.
I think that I will have to say that no points are going to be scored on that, but if anybody goes, speaks a word for more than 4 occasions like that, it will be repetition, even if it's on the card. Right, no points scored.
A new rule after 32 years.
I don't know. Nuts and May, still with you, Clement. No points scored or lost. 49 seconds, starting now.
Nuts is a word in common usage to describe people who are not quite all there, those who are perhaps one song short of an Eisteddfod, or what lunatic asylums used to have not only screws and bolts, but also nuts. And in May, which was not at all a bad year in which to go to such an institution.
Paul, you've challenged.
In May, which was not such a bad year.
Yes?
Deviation.
Deviation.
May's a
May
month.
was a month, not a year.
Oh, really?
24 seconds. For you, Paul, with a correct challenge on Nuts in May, starting now.
I used to go out with a girl called May, and she was lovely, and every Friday night we'd go down the pub, have a few drinks, and I'd give her a bag of peanuts. And I'd say, oh, May, there's some nuts. And May would always say, oh, how lovely, nuts for me, nuts in May. I said, yes, absolutely, nuts in May, that's twice, nuts in May, that's 3, nuts in May, 4.
Fred MacAulay's challenge.
Picky, but he repeated that.
I think that's picky. I think that's good listening. So, Fred, correct challenge. You've got him with 3 seconds to go on. Nuts in May, starting now.
I don't...
Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
No. You've got 2.5 seconds on Nuts in May, Fred. Starting now.
I don't think Nuts in May is about gathering.
Right. Well, you certainly have the audience's sympathy, Fred. You've got their point for speaking as the whistle went. You have leapt forward, but you're still in 4th place. Paul, it is your turn to begin. Daring Do. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Wilbur and Orville Wright are credited as being the first men to fly in an aeroplane, and their attempts must have...
Graham Norton challenge.
Sort of came to ground.
Yes, he had a false landing. Graham, 52 seconds are available. You tell us something about Daring Do, starting now.
In my opinion, a daring do is a home perm. I also think Moira Stewart sports a particularly daring do. I wouldn't have the nerve, would you? And yet she goes on television. Gloria Hunniford is patron saint of all people interested in daring do's. I don't know what's on her head, possibly a small dog. I've never seen its face. She must go to the hairdressers and go on, I don't care. And this, to me, sums up irony. Gloria Hunniford recently...
I get repetition of that. Gloria Hunniford, I get repetition of people boo.
Well, Gloria Hunniford will be very upset that they...
No, actually, can I take this one? I like Gloria Hunniford. I do. You have lovely hair in the flesh. It's just TV lights affected. I don't know.
Paul, you have a correct challenge. Repetition. 5 seconds to go. Somebody gets in. Paul, Daring Do, starting now.
I suppose the man who was piloting the Titanic through the icebergs thought to himself...
Paul Merton speaking as the whistle went. Gained that extra point, has increased his lead. And Jane Gibson, who is so lovely and such a help to me, but she is very nervous of her whistle. Jane, would you...
Is she not blowing to your satisfaction, Nicholas?
No, she's not. She can't rattle her pea in that machine very well. Jane, for the sake of... I've embarrassed the girl so much, and she really... Jane, we love you very much, but do try and give it gusto. Try once more for this audience. Give a blow and see what happens. Go on, you're lovely. She's shaking now, poor darling. Go on. Give it a big blow. Go on. Go on. Go on. Well, give it gusto. Go on.
You've done this coaxing before, haven't you?
Go on, give it a big one. Go on, Jane. Go on. Go on, Jane. That's right. Graham Norton, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is a fiendish mind. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
There is a fiendish mind at work in the world of publishing. As a lover of all things north of the border, it was some exciting...
Great challenge.
I'm not sure. What should I challenge you on, Graham? Hesitation, I think.
Yes, from English as we understand it, right. 50 seconds for you, Fred, on the subject of a fiendish mind, starting now.
I think everybody's probably got a little fiendish cell in their brain, because not everyone decides that they're going to embark on a particular enterprise, but halfway along they may discover that they're veering towards a devilish endeavour. But I think that opposite and the other side of that thinking organ in...
Graham, challenge.
I was just giving him an option.
Yes. So, Fred MacAulay, you keep a fiendish mind, and you have 31 seconds. They're still available to you. Keep going if you can, starting now.
I don't think Graham Norton's got a fiendish mind, because he was being very charitable there, trying to help me out, because I was gathering speed as I...
But he got in this time, and that was obvious hesitation. Yes, Graham, you've got the subject back of a fiendish mind, and there are 21 seconds available starting now.
It was with some excitement I purchased a magazine entitled Jock. But imagine my surprise when I got it home and discovered nary a Scottish person in it. The only sign of Tartan was where one of the models had been sitting in a wicker chair.
Clement Freud challenge.
Did somebody interrupt me?
No, you weren't interrupted, but I was just looking at the audience. They were all sort of working that out in their minds. Clement, do you have a challenge? I didn't ask you what it was.
He hesitated.
He did indeed. 4 seconds for you on a fiendish mind, starting now.
I think the author of Noddy probably had as fiendish a mind.
For the sake of our listeners, I must explain that extra loud cheer from the audience came for Jane Gibson for the way she blew her whistle then. And Clement Freud, you've moved forward. You're a little way behind Paul Merton, but ahead of the other two, and it's your turn to begin, Clement. The subject is dirty laughs. We don't have many of those in just a minute, but talk on the subject for 60 seconds if you can, starting now.
The concept that you should have a different kind of laugh, depending on the nature of the joke, is one to which I don't subscribe, but let us try. There was this woman with huge boobs and a tiny brain.
Graham has challenged.
Repetition of ha.
Yes. Correct challenge. So, Graham, you have the subject. You have 44 seconds. You have dirty laughs, starting now.
Oh,
Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, indeed, yes.
Yes.
Paul Merton, you had a correct challenge of hesitation, 42 seconds. Tell us something about dirty laughs, starting now.
I think what Clement was saying is wrong. I think you can identify dirty laughs. For example, Sid James in many Carry-On films was noted for his particular dirty laugh whenever Barbara Windsor bent over or laid back or opened her arms in a particularly suggestive manner. Undoubtedly, his laugh was a dirty one. Sometimes you would say to yourself, I can't imagine the Archbishop of Canterbury possessing a dirty laugh. You can't see him really giving service at Easter on a Sunday perhaps, or even on Good Friday, turning to the congregation and going, it's just not feasible that such a man of the cloth would behave in a manner...
So Paul Merton took the subject of dirty laughs right up to the whistle and got that extra point for doing so, and has increased his lead at the end of the round. And Paul, it's also your turn to begin. The subject, the face in the crowd. A dramatic subject. Tell us something about it. 60 seconds, starting now.
This year marks the 100th anniversary of Alfred Hitchcock, who of course was famous not only for making films of wonderful suspense, but also for his cameo appearances in those movies. His first appearance in front of the camera was the silent...
Clement Freud challenge.
2 appearances.
Yes.
Two appearances, yes. He only made one most of the time, but sorry, I'm just getting a note here. Right, thank you very much indeed. Right.
Go home. Leave the building, don't look left or right, don't talk to anybody.
So, Clement, correct challenge. This watch is still going. Oh, we just have to guess how many seconds he'd gone for. We'll assume he went for 15 seconds.
I went for 15 seconds.
Right. So, Clement, you have 45 seconds for the face in the crowd, starting now.
If you were to go into a crowd and pick almost any face in whatever location you choose, you could get a chairman who would have all the quality of Nicholas Parsons and then some. That's about all I wish to say in this moment.
Full challenge.
Full stop. Completion.
Full stop, which we interpret as hesitation. So you two are going to have another go at me in the face in the crowd. And there are 28 seconds left, starting now.
In Psycho, you see him walking across the road as... Between whom?
Fred McCall.
You wanted me to repeat Alfred Hitchcock?
Fred, you challenge.
He hesitated.
He did hesitate, yes.
Hang on a minute. Clement said to me, whom, in the middle of me speaking.
I know. So it stopped you in your tracks, did it?
It did, a little bit.
It did. Well, Paul...
As Clement knows full well.
Listen, Paul, as you're in a very strong lead, and we've lost count of all the seconds in this round...
Let's throw all the rules out the window.
And as Fred MacAulay only guesses when he's up here, we're up here in Scotland, and I say there's another 15 seconds to go.
Or so.
Yeah. Let's call it just a while. Yeah.
Has anybody got a calendar?
Let's finish, as we could, in true Glaswegian style, with a Glaswegian voice telling us something about the face in the crowd. 15 seconds, starting now.
It's a Perth boys, Nicholas, but if I would like to say that there could be nothing more terrifying than only seeing one face in a crowd. Can you imagine?
Paul Merton challenge.
Well, it wouldn't be a crowd if you're going to see one face.
But I mean, if there's 1,700 people and there's only one face, that's terrifying.
No? He could, no, not at all. They could be looking the wrong way.
1,699 headless corpses.
Fred,
listen, you get your audience, I get my audience.
I think Fred has justified what he was saying. Yes. And you can look at a crowd and be so transfixed by one face, that's the only face you see. So in every respect, Fred, I think it was an incorrect challenge. And you keep the subject, and you have...
18 minutes.
8 seconds available. The face in the crowd starting now.
Hello, can you get me the police, please? I've just seen a crowd and there's only one face. Yeah, they're in the King's Theatre.
So, Fred. Yes, you speaking as a whistle went, you gained that extra point for doing so. You have moved even further forward. You're now in second place, but we're into the final round. And whose turn is to begin? It is Graham Norton. The final twist. Tell us something about the final twist, Graham. 60 seconds starting now.
In my school, we had a special dance to celebrate the end of the potato harvest. It was known as the Spud Hop. And we all remember the final twist at that. Miss Doody, the Irish teacher, I think she'd had a spritzer or a glass of sherry, decided to venture onto the floor. Twist she did. Fell over like a dead cow. And she broke her leg. I know it sounds cruel, but we laughed. Forgive us, we were children. We were young. We didn't know. That was the final twist. The other good final twist is when you're opening a bottle
and Fred MacAulay's challenge.
Slight hesitation.
There are 17 seconds. You've got in, Fred, with a correct challenge. The final twist. Tell us something about it in this game, starting now.
I think it would be a complete nightmare if the final dance at a disco was a twist. because you're looking forward to a slow one. There could be nothing worse than ending an evening writhing and sweating beside a partner, barely able to speak because you were exhausted.
Paul challenged.
It was a hesitation.
I know it was a hesitation, and you cleverly got him with 2 seconds to go. Oh, look on Fred's face. He wanted to finish the show in style, but 2 seconds. The final twist is with you, Paul Merton, starting now.
In Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, the final twist is that Norman Bates...
Well, that final twist was a final flourish in this particular edition of Just a Minute, and Paul Merton get that extra point for speaking as a whisperman. The final situation for those interested in points, and they all contributed so much, but Graham Norton didn't get quite as many points as Clement Freud. Freud didn't get quite as many as Fred MacAulay, but out in the lead, a few points ahead, was Paul Merton, so we say, Paul, you are our winner this week. It only remains for me to say thank you to our 4 delightful players of the game, Paul Merton, Fred MacAulay, Graham Norton, Clement Freud, to thank them, to thank Jane Gibson, and also we thank the creator of the game, Ian Messiter, and also our producer and director, that is Chris Neal, and we also thank this lovely, talented, extravagant audience here, the King's Theatre Glasgow, for cheering us on our way. We've had a wonderful time. Hope you've enjoyed it. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Until then, from me, Nicholas Parsons, goodbye. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my pleasure not only to welcome our many listeners throughout the world, but also the 4 diverse, talented, and dynamic personalities who this week are going to play Just a Minute. We welcome back one of the wittiest and most erudite players of our game, Kit Hesketh-Harvey. We have one of our most outrageous and audacious and effervescent comedians, that is Jenny Eclair. We have another delightful stand-up comedian, that is Stephen Frost. And we also are so happy to welcome back one of the long-standing players of the game, the ever-popular Peter Jones. But would you please welcome all 4 of them? As usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on a subject that I will give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. Beside me sits Jane Gibson, who's going to help me keep the score. She'll hold the stopwatch, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Oxford Union, in the very heart of this great ancient seat of learning. And in front of us, we have a highly intelligent, vociferous, hyped-up, excited, intelligent, intellectual, undergraduate audience from this great university. And we're going to begin the show this week with Stephen Frost. Stephen, what an apt subject to start off with. It is Dreaming Spires. Tell us something about it in just a minute, starting now.
In 1976, I went to see a punk rock band called the Ramones, and supporting them were the Dreaming Spires. They were pretty good because they come on stage wearing different types of churches on their heads. And one of their best-known numbers was Rock the Aisles. And now, in this case, everybody in the audience would start jumping up and down, which was, in those days, was called the pogo. And when the Dreaming Spires left the stage, the audience left the auditorium. So that...
Jenny Eclair, you have challenged.
He said left twice.
He left twice, so that is repetition. Jenny, well listened. You get a point, of course, because that is a correct challenge. And you have 37 seconds to continue taking over the subject of Dreaming Spires, starting now.
Well, obviously, I have a massive chip on my shoulder because I never went to Oxford or Cambridge University. Still haven't done badly for a girl with no education and hardly any bosom to speak of. It is absolutely charming to be here.
And Stephen Frost, a challenge.
Well, deviation, it's Dreaming Spires, and she said she's got no bosom to speak of. I think they're just right, Jenny.
Stephen, I think from the audience, a response to that particular remark of yours shows it was highly appreciated. So for that alone, we give you a point. But as Jenny
You get 2 points with Jenny's.
But as Jenny wasn't technically deviating within just a minute, she gets a point for being interrupted and keeps the subject. And there are 24 seconds available still, Jenny. Dreaming Spires, starting now.
You see, I'm winning already. Who needs a degree? Dreaming Squires, that, on the other hand, are very posh old gentlemen that go to sleep after drinking lashings of port and have elaborate dreams concerning kitchen maids.
Kit Hesketh-Harvey.
She stopped, I'm afraid.
She did, yes, which is hesitation.
She was in a great reverie,
yes,
but
that's
it was
right.
lovely.
I went into a coma, actually.
Kit, a correct challenge. 9 seconds available. Dreaming Spires, starting now.
Naturally, I prefer the Dreaming Spires of my own university, Cambridge.
Stephen Frost challenge.
Hesitation there.
Yeah,
He was
I
nervous.
call
He
that-
didn't want to say Cambridge in front of this lot.
So, Stephen, you got in. Another point to you, and you got 7 seconds. Dreaming Spires, starting now.
As I drove here on the A40, I saw the Dreaming Spires of Oxford gleaming in the sunlight as the car pulled up.
Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point on this occasion. It was Stephen Frost, and he has naturally taken the lead at the end of that round. Then it's Jenny Eclair and Kit Hesketh-Harvey, and then Peter Jones. And Peter, we'd like you to take the next round. In fact, we'd like to hear from you. And, an apt subject. How much do you know about Svengali? But tell us something about it in just a minute, Peter, starting now.
Svengali was the creation of George du Maurier, who was the father of the actor Gerald and grandfather of the novelist Daphne. And the part was played on the London stage.
Oh, sorry, Jenny, it's a challenge. I do apologize.
He was deviating like mad. We were getting a sort of potted history of the du Maurier family.
That's
I thought
right.
we were talking about Svengali. I mean, I know that he was originally a character in a book called
It's all right,
Trilby.
darling. You need to
I
show off your
started?
brilliant erudition here. No, he was deviating. He was onto the du Maurier family and not Svengali, though Svengali was created by Gerald du Maurier. 48 seconds available. Svengali, Jenny, starting now.
Yes, originally from the book Trilby by the author that Peter was chunnering on about. I'm not going to fall into the same trap as he did. Surely not, for damn's sake. No.
So you fell into a different trap. And Kit got
She
in
fell
on
into
a...
hesitation.
Right, Kit, a
yes.
point to you, and the subject of Svengali, 40 seconds, starting now.
The lovely family, the Garleys, live on a Norwegian fjord called Dagenham. Their daughters Ulrika, Gretchen, and Ursula Andres were crowned by a lovely little son, Sven Gali, who was the apple of his parents' eye. He grew to be the greatest herring smelter this side of Trondheim, and he went out in his little Norwegian jacket and socks and caught... I've said Norwegian twice. Shall I interrupt myself?
Kit, you've actually challenged yourself.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And so I have to ask you, what was
I
your
wanted
challenge?
to spare myself from the challenge of repeating Norwegian.
Absolutely, you're perfectly correct. So I suppose if you challenge yourself, it isn't been very often done, and you have a correct challenge for repetition, you get a point for that. And so, yes, a correct challenge, Kit. Another point, 11 seconds still available. Svengali, can you keep going on it, starting now?
He spent his life looking for the fisherman's ring, which, as a lot of you will know, is the papal seal to which he attaches his briefs. And there was no ring to be found.
Jenny.
He not only hesitated, but he said ring twice.
He did indeed, yes. But I can't give you 2 points, Jenny. Just one's enough.
That's enough.
Right, that's enough. 1 point for correct challenge and 2 seconds, cleverly.
Oh, Svengali was an ace name for a son. If I had one, I'd call him Svengali, Trevor.
So, Jenny Eclair was speaking as the whistle went then, got that extra point for doing so. She's now moved into the lead ahead of Stephen Frost and Kit Hesketh-Harvey, equal in second place. Kit, will you take the next subject? Oh yes, very topical, the Millennium bug. Right, I don't know if you know anything about it, but we've heard a lot about it, read a lot about it. Tell us something about it in 60 seconds if you can, starting now.
I am sick to death of the Millennium bug. Everyone's a bugger these days. They come up to one at parties and say, "What are you doing for the Millennium?" I couldn't care a jot. Just so long as I don't have to watch Peter Mandelson peel back the covers of his glistening dome.
Stephen Frost challenge.
He choked on Peter Mandelson.
He saw this highly political audience in front of him and he choked as he came up. Right. Stephen, a correct challenge, and there are 47 seconds available. The Millennium bug starting now.
I had a cold last week, and that was my 2000s illness. That was my Millennium bug. But, of course, a lot of people are referring to the computer that's going to blow up. The computer in the sky, the one that's going to run...
Jenny.
He said computer twice.
I know he did say
I'm
that.
sure
is
he didn't
repetition.
mean to, but he did.
No. So, Jenny, 38 seconds. The Millennium bug starting now.
If I've got this right, the Millennium bug sends clocks backwards. I wouldn't mind catching it because then I could be 19 again. Hurrah! Imagine that, all nubile and gorgeous once again. Apart from...
Kit, challenge.
She went into a reverie just thinking about it.
I know. Well, this subject that you don't want, you got back again. The 27 seconds on the Millennium bug starting now.
What rough beast, his hour come at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born, wrote W.B. Yeats. He was a great apocalyptic millennialist, turning in the
Stephen Frost,
widening
you've
gyre.
challenged. I'm sorry, I didn't hear any noise, but your light came on. You challenged.
Well, a bit of deviation there. We're talking
Why?
Because he's doing poetry and...
He's going off in the Millennium, you see, Yeats. He thought everything was going to fall apart.
I know that. Don't show me up in front of all these people. I know that.
He was also guilty of showing off a bit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're certainly right.
So he didn't... what is actually...
I'm going for deviation, because he's not mentioned... Or did you say
No,
Millennium?
he talked about Yeats and his association with the Millennium.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
But that's why we love having you on the show.
I'm having enough trouble here keeping Peter quiet.
You know, So, an incorrect challenge. Another point to you, Kit, and 16 seconds, the Millennium bug, starting now.
The aeroplanes are going to fall out of the
He
sky.
was challenged again. I know, there's no sound. Can we stop those 1 minute? There's hardly any sound. Peter, you challenged, but I hardly heard you. I tell you what we're going to do. I've just got a word to the engineer, and he says a Millennium bug has got into our buzzers, and so he's managed to upbeat the sound. So press again, just to show us what we're going to get now. My goodness me. So from now on, team, that's the noise we're getting.
But they've all left. They think it's fire drill.
So that particular Millennium bug was cured very, very rapidly. I hope all the others will be. Peter, what was your challenge after all that?
Gosh, I can't.
Anything will do.
Yes, I was complaining about the equipment and the lack of...
So it was deviation from the normal
deviation
equipment.
and hesitation as well. I hesitated and deviated all at once.
Did you really?
So, Peter, you have a correct challenge.
Thank you.
And you have a point, which is fantastic. And you have 13 seconds to continue on the Millennium bug, starting now.
Well, I was going to say that it's nothing to do with computers or anything. It is a bacteria, and it'll come from the starlings in the southern part of Japan. And they'll kill them all, rather...
So Peter Jones, speaking of the whistle wind, got the extra point for doing so, and with the other points in that round, he has leapt forward, and he's still in fourth place. But Peter Jones, it's your turn to begin. The subject, Oxford Brogues. Will you tell us something about those in this game, starting now?
Well, I won't go on about them, but they are shoes that are worn usually in the country, and they're decorated with little holes.
Kit, you challenge.
Deviation is going on about them.
That's mean.
So an incorrect challenge, Peter.
Yes.
And you get a point for that, and you get 53 seconds, Oxford Brogues, starting now.
They're not really very fashionable at the moment, except in the outer limits of Oxfordshire.
Jenny, challenge.
Some hesitation.
Not some. None. I don't think so, no. 46 seconds. Oxford Brogues, Peter, with you, starting now.
Then a lot of Irish people who speak with a brogue in Oxford and elsewhere, wherever they go, they spread it. And it is quite appealing, really, because it's warm, friendly and everything, usually, unless they're carrying...
Yes, Jenny, I would agree with you on that one. And you have Oxford Brogues and 30 seconds starting now.
I always say you can tell a lot about a man by his shoes. If he's not wearing any, he can't afford you. I also think a man that's got lace-ups is far superior.
Stephen Frost challenge.
2 men.
Yes, I know, it's very difficult for Jenny. She does repeat man quite often. But that was a repetition within just a minute, 20 seconds available. Oxford Brogues with you, Stephen, starting now.
I had a pair of Oxford Brogues once. They were beautiful, light brown colour, 6 holes in each shoe where I put the lace and tied them up before I went out walking as they clipped along the pavement. Everyone would look at me and say...
Kids, you challenge.
What then?
They couldn't remember what they said, but there was hesitation, 9 seconds.
I thought I heard a buzz. I'm ever so sorry. I thought...
That's right. I don't know what you said then, but it sounded absolutely rubbish. The Oxford Brogues, with you, Kit. 9 seconds, starting now.
They come from the Highlands of Scotland. Why they were adopted by this ancient university, I cannot imagine, because they take an awful lot of polish. Perhaps they're a sign of privilege. So high maintenance are they.
So, Kit Hesketh-Harvey was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so. He's equal with Jenny Eclair in second place, just behind our leader, Stephen Frost. And Kit, it's your turn to begin. The subject, thinking out loud. Something that, people do in this show, but talk on the subject, starting now.
Thinking out loud, I can see that Nicholas Parsons' buttocks are particularly tightly clenched tonight. Whether it is because he is at this ancient university and is scared that his bride's head might become revisited, I do not know. But looks very fetching with it. Thinking out loud, I look around this ancient chamber, and I've said ancient twice. For God's sake, rescue me somebody.
Jenny, you challenge.
Thinking out loud. See that bloke 4 rows back? He's cute, isn't he? Oops, done it again.
You are shameless, Mrs.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
I can't concentrate,
I haven't given
actually.
you the chance to start yet.
Oh, dear.
I know, I do have to say there are 38 seconds. Thinking out loud, starting now.
Can I say what I just said again?
Yes.
So he knows I'm serious.
Kid, you challenge.
Repetition of...
And I'm sure Jenny doesn't mind losing the subject because she was worth it. She enjoyed it. 35 seconds available. Thinking out loud with you, Kit, starting now.
Thinking out loud, I should tell him, don't even go there, darling. It's a horrible place, and you will find yourself embarrassed in the morning. The absolute nadir of your existence will be waking up with Jenny Eclair at the Randolph Hotel tomorrow. Beautiful you might be. Come back, Jenny, now.
Oh, Peter Jones has challenged.
Repetition of Jenny.
Absolutely, there are some who say you can't have too much of Jenny, and certainly in just a minute we love having as much as possible of her. But Peter, it is repetition to repeat her name. So you got in there with 18 seconds available. Thinking out loud, starting now.
If I was sitting next to Jenny and I put my thoughts into words, I would probably be arrested. But thinking aloud is not something that should really be encouraged by anybody, I don't think, because it supplies...
Well, Peter, you did jolly well. A lot of points there, including one for speaking as the whistle went. Jenny, what a lovely subject now. Very apt. Mayball. Could you tell us about a Mayball? Have you ever been to an Oxford Mayball?
Oh, are you asking me a question? Or
I asked a question, yes.
I have.
You have. Tell us about it. 60 seconds starting now.
I have never been to a Maypole without having to sing for my supper. As a stand-up comic and Perrier Award winner in 1995, I've been to many of these things. Do you know, it's so ghastly. They're very expensive, the tickets, and they employ people with guns and walkie-talkies to keep out the riffraff like me. I said to this bouncer, "Do you know who I am?" "No," came the resounding reply, and I had to get in via a hedge. And they're getting more and more over the top, these things.
Hesketh-Harvey.
Repetition of more, I'm afraid.
Yes.
Yes, there was more, yes.
You're right,
Repetition, you were right, kid. A point to you. And May Ball is with you. And 36 seconds starting now.
I can sense that this audience is completely baffled, since in Oxford they're actually called commenballs. Mayballs are what we have in Cambridge. And...
Stephen Frost challenge.
Patronising.
So give Stephen a bonus point because we not enjoyed the challenge and so did the audience. But Kit wasn't actually technically deviating from the subject. So Kit, you have a point for being interrupted. You keep going. 29 seconds still available. Mayball starting now.
The tickets are terribly expensive and you don't want Mayball. You want a partner who will ball definitely by the end of the evening because of the investment you put into it. They're very muddy affairs, from what I read.
Stephen Frost challenge.
Sorry, two varies, very expensive and very much.
That's right, serious, two very, right. Stephen, 18 seconds, Mayball, starting now.
The last Mayball I did a gig at, the sign said free beer and comedy, so I was very upset because when we arrived on stage, all the students were drunk and throwing cans at us, which made them laugh but not us. We walked off and made sure that we got home safely and never played that venue.
Kit, you challenge.
Narrowly averted being patronising there.
All right. Kit, it was hesitation. We've got 1 second to
God.
go on Mayball, starting now.
Mabel was a lovely girl.
So, Kit Hesketh-Harvey, speaking as a whistleman, gained that extra point. He's now taken the lead at the end of that round, just ahead of Stephen Frost, Jenny Eclair, Peter Jones, in that order. And Stephen, your turn to begin. And the subject is fishing for compliments. Do you ever do it? Tell us something about it. 60 seconds, starting now.
How was I, darling, is probably the most fished-for compliment in the world. The trouble with fishing for compliments is you don't get the answer that you require. Often you're told that you're not as good as you thought you were, which can be very embarrassing and can end a long...
Yes, Jenny.
He's got depressed about his sex life.
Repetition or hesitation, the combination of the two. Right, Jenny, a point to you. Fishing for compliments, starting now.
Fishing for compliments is a girl thing. Oh, God, I'm so fat and I hate my hair. And then the bloke is meant to say, darling, you're a beauty of the first degree. How I adore your slender, cellulite free flanks. And as for your silken tresses, may I bury my head into them once again and remind you what a fantastic bird you are. See, blokes, what klutses you are. That's all you have to do to keep us happy. We're not very difficult people at all.
Peter Jones, your challenge.
Well, I didn't hear all that. I couldn't distinguish. I think there were one or two repetitions.
So what is your challenge, actually?
Well, I don't know, really.
You don't know?
What choices are there?
I'll give you the choice. I'll say the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
That's a good choice, isn't it?
Yes.
So,
all right.
so it goes to you, Peter. Well done. 23 seconds. Fishing for compliments, starting now.
It's not something I've ever done because I haven't really been able to collect enough bait to really provide somebody with the material on which to decide whether I was worth a compliment or not. A compliment can, of course, be a plug as well, if you're inclined that way.
Peter, you were going with such style that I was rather naughty. I let you go beyond the minute, and actually you went beyond it. That's why there was a pause. You looked at me and I blew the whistle myself on that occasion. But you get a point for speaking when the whistle should have been blown.
Yes.
And what's the situation? Oh, you're doing jolly well. I mean, you're now equal with Jenny Eclair, and she was leading a little while ago. And who's going to begin the next round? Let me have a look. It is Peter. It's your turn to begin. The one-way system. Talk on that subject, Peter, if you can. 60 seconds starting now.
Well, the only really surefire one-way system, I suppose, is gravity, because everything goes down, even if you're on the other side of the world. It appears to be doing so, though from our position here, it appears to be going up.
Stephen, your challenge.
Can't take any more. Two appears there. Two appears.
Appears to go down, appears to go up. Yes, repetition, Stephen. 42 seconds on gravity. No, not gravity, no, where? 42 seconds on the one-way system, starting now.
The best way to go down a one-way system is to reverse, and no one complains at all, because that way you're going the other way that you should have gone, but not...
Peter Jones' challenge.
Just very...
I know.
Too rough and not distinct. Not up to BBC standard at all.
The one-way system, starting now.
Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, I see. Well, I thought I'd done that.
No, it's still the same subject, Peter. You challenged. You challenged, Peter. It was a correct challenge. I gave you a point for a correct challenge.
Yes.
You weren't sure what your challenge was, but I gave you the benefit of the doubt again.
Well, thanks very much.
And said, right, you get a point for that.
You're
and now you take over the subject with the 27 seconds available still. And you start now when I say now.
Now. Well... backwards up a one-way street, you're infringing the police regulations, and you're not really supposed to do that. And anyway, nobody is going to believe that you're really going forward if you're actually going backwards. I've noticed that people
Get his challenge,
An awful lot of goings, weren't there?
Going and backwards, too. So, but you kept going for 40 seconds, Peter, but unfortunately not to the whistle. So, Kit...
40 seconds?
Yes, we did jolly well.
Well, I only had 27 to start.
Well, you see, I studied my mathematics at Glasgow University. Obviously, I was at the wrong university for maths. No, I'm sorry, my subtraction was wrong. Yes, it was only 20 seconds.
So what happens to me?
You keep quiet now, because Kit has got a correct challenge, which was repetition of backwards and things like that. And so, Kit, you've got a point for correct challenge. And 10 seconds available, the one-way system starting now.
The terrible thing is that after this recording, we're going to go to a hostelry where Nicholas Parsons will toy with his oysters and then bat his eyelids at me and say, life isn't just a one-way system, you know. Would you not like snails as well?
What makes you think I'm going to bat my eyelids at you,
You've
Kit?
done it before. I've had to put a chair under the door handle at the hotel, I can tell you.
And Jenny, it is your turn to begin, so take the last round. Brown envelope. Oh, so many significances there, but talk about it. 60 seconds starting now.
Well, I'm not sure whether there's some weirdo sexual deviation, Nicholas. I'm rather worried. Brown envelopes. Do you know, in the olden days when men got paid their weekly wages, they'd bring it home in a brown envelope and the missives would take it off them. Oh, hurrah, it doesn't work that way anymore. I've tried, but...
It's a tough game, isn't it? Tried
so
and tried.
hard.
Stephen, you came in first. So 46 seconds on brown envelope starting now.
Bad news comes in brown envelopes. I think they should change the colour of them so you're not taken by surprise. You think, it's a yellow one, I know what's coming, I accept it. Because brown, you always seem to know that that's the situation.
Jenny.
Well, he hesitated, he deviated, he just went on and on, it got a bit dull.
You didn't rub it in, love. Really. He hesitated. 34 seconds for you, brown envelope, starting now.
The thing is, Stephen's wrong as well, because my bank used to send me bills in brown envelopes, and I never used to open them, so they started sending them in pink. I used to think, oh, Valentine's card.
Stephen Frost challenge.
2 sendings.
2 sendings. Yeah. So, Stephen, 28 seconds, back with you, brown envelope, starting now.
I found a brown envelope on my floor this morning inside my house. Of course it was there, not outside, otherwise you'd have to sack the postman. But he knew that if I saw what was inside, I would burst into tears. It was another brown envelope. A cruel trick played on me by this man who delivers mail to my door.
Stephen, Peter Jones, your challenge.
Repetition of door.
That's right. There's too many doors there and other things. Right. Peter, you've got in with 7 seconds to go on brown envelope, starting now.
It can be full of crisp fivers, so long as you promise to ask a question in the House of Commons.
So Peter Jones, in speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so, and he's moved forward into a very respectable position there. I now just give you, for those interested in points and so forth, the final score. Jenny Eclair was leading for quite a long time, and she gave incredible value, as she always does, but she did finish up only just in 4th place. Then Peter Jones came from nowhere, and he finished up just ahead of Jenny.
I came from London.
But as we were playing the game, you sort of came from nowhere in a point of points, yes.
You mean I got back into the game,
You
as
got
they
back
say.
into the game and you excelled.
Yes.
Kit Hesketh-Harvey, who always gives good value there, came... Oh, this is very, very fair, isn't it? And Stephen Frost, who hasn't played the game quite so much, and Kit Hesketh-Harvey, only 2 points ahead, but between them they have an equal number, so we call them the winners this week. Yes. We do hope you have enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute. It only remains for me to thank Kit Hesketh-Harvey, Peter Jones, Stephen Frost and Jenny Eclair, and also Jane Gibson for helping keep the score and blowing her whistle so delicately and with such power, actually. It was very, very dramatic. And also our producer, Chris Neal, who produced and directs the show, and of course Ian Messiter, who created Just a Minute, and we still go on playing this game. And of course this particular undergraduate audience here, maybe there's some graduates in the audience as well, I don't know, at Oxford Union. It's been a joy to be with you, and maybe, who knows, we might come back again. Wouldn't that be lovely? Would you like to have us back again? All right. Until we get return here again, let me say to all of you and to our listeners at home and overseas, goodbye. This is Nicholas Parsons saying thank you for listening. Bye. Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my pleasure to welcome the many listeners we have, not only in this country, but throughout the world, but most importantly to welcome the four exciting, skilled, and exuberant players of the game who have joined me this week. We have two very talented comedians of the younger generation, that is, Paul Merton and Tony Hawks, and we have two great comedy performers of a former generation who have been with the show since it first began, and that is Peter Jones and Clement Freud. Would you please welcome all four of them? And as usual, I am going to ask them to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that as usual without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. Beside me sits Jane Gibson, who's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Grand Opera House in this wonderful ancient city of York. And before us... And everybody knows we have a very exuberant Yorkshire audience in front of us. And we're going to begin the show this week with Tony Hawks. Tony, the subject I have here is the wrong number. Tell us something about the wrong number in just a minute, starting now.
I hate it when you call someone up and say, "Is that Michael?" And they reply, "I'm sorry, but you've got the wrong number." What are they talking about? I haven't got the wrong number. I've got the same number I've always had. They've got the wrong number. That's why I can't talk to my mate Mick. Okay, I've dialed the wrong number, but they don't actually say that. And that's a little irritation that I'm glad I shared with you. It's quite important to get the right number if you can. They say 2's company, 3's a crowd, 80,000 is a Wembley Cup final, and that's not ideal for an intimate evening. So you want to get the right kind of...
And Clement Freud is challenged.
Repetition of right.
Right. He did say right before. So, Clement, there are 24 seconds available, starting now.
When fire broke out, I went to the telephone and dialed 987. It was the only thing I could do because the number between 6 and 12 is something I couldn't repeat.
Paul Merton challenged.
It's a bit vague, isn't it? A number between 6 and 12. There's several numbers between 6 and 12. 10, 11, he hasn't said those.
No, he didn't indicate that. He indicated to me that it was one of the numbers between 6 and 12 that he didn't want to repeat.
When he said the number, you thought he meant the numbers.
I thought he meant... I had to make these difficult decisions. I thought he meant the number which followed 9 on this 999 call, which he was endeavouring to call because he wanted the fire brigade to come. So I do think he made it clear to me that that was a particular number he was trying to avoid, which was 9. So I give him the benefit of the doubt and say...
Well, the only doubt is in your mind.
And that's been in doubt for many years, but I still got the job. But Clement, you have the benefit of the doubt. You have an incorrect challenge, a point for that. You keep the subject. 9 seconds are available. The wrong number starting now.
When you go to a Chinese restaurant and you order a dish by number...
Tony Hawks challenged.
I just want to know who came when he rang 987.
Occasionally what I do, so we have a lovely comment like that, I give them a bonus point because we enjoyed it, in which, of course, it's Tony Hawks, a bonus point to him. Clement was interrupted, so he gets a point for that. He has 3 seconds to continue with the wrong number, starting now.
They say the long number, which is...
Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Clement Freud. Peter Jones, would you take the next round? Sticking my neck out is the subject. It's a good subject. Please talk on it if you can. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Well, it comes from sort of gallows humour. You may remember Dr. Samuel Palmer, the poisoner, who not only was a member of the medical profession, but also killed people by giving them poison. And he was eventually hanged, and when he climbed the steps of the scaffold and put his foot on the trap door, he said to the hangman, "Are you sure this is safe?" A lot of people on the scaffold put their head
Tony
forward.
Hawk's challenged.
Repetition of scaffold.
You had the scaffold before, Peter, I'm afraid. Yes, you did.
So long ago.
Tony, correct. Challenge, a point to you, 21 seconds. You tell us something about sticking my neck out starting now.
I'm always sticking my neck out. For instance, not that long ago, during the Wimbledon fortnight, I put £100,000 on Tim Henman to win, and we all remember what an exciting event that was, and I just can't remember whether he did it or not.
Paul, you challenge. Paul,
repetition and remember.
You remember too much, I'm afraid. Yes. Paul, you have a correct challenge, and you have the subject now, sticking my neck out, and you have 8 seconds starting now.
In my career as a professional tortoise impressionist, I used to stick my neck out every Wednesday at the Alhambra, Bradford, which is one of the finest.
Paul Merton speaking as the whistle went with his tortoise shell coming out like that. Gained that extra point, and he's now equal to Tony Hawk's in second place. Clement Freud still in the lead, and Clement, it's your turn to begin. The subject is testing times. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
In a commercial chicken plant, testing times is when the giblets are put into a bag inside the animal. And DNA is the only way that you can be sure that the heart, liver and neck within the carcass of the bird are actually those of the plumage animal in question.
Paul Merton challenged.
Sadly, repetition of animal.
And you? Well, sadly, I was delighted you stopped him. I mean... Paul, I agree with the challenge. 34 seconds. Testing times starting now.
When I sat my A-level history, it was a retake, which, is repetition, I suppose. But I did it because I hadn't passed the first time. And I'm afraid to say, and I'm admitting it now, I cheated in my A-level history.
Oh, Clement Freud. Oh, right. Peter, you challenged then. Why?
Well, he repeated it.
I know, but Clement got in first.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm afraid Clement got in first. 22 seconds, testing times. Clement starting now.
What have you given me the point for?
You should challenge first.
What did I challenge for?
Is it soup tonight?
I'm allowed to make one complete mess up. I wouldn't use the word cock here because it's in Yorkshire. And of course I did then. I made a complete mess of the whole thing. It was Paul Merton who challenged Clement Freud. And, wasn't that right?
That definitely is a cock-up.
No. I was speaking and I challenged Clement.
Because you were talking about the testing times you had at school trying to get through your A-levels history at the second attempt. So I was listening. And you pressed your buzzer, Clement, and so you came in first, so I was correct, and somebody's winding me up.
So you work on clockwork at last.
So, Clement, what was your challenge?
Repetition of A-levels.
Well, the audience realised you were correct. So, Clement, you have 20 seconds. Take back testing times starting now.
When South Africa, Australia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Kenya, and any other nation which wishes to play international cricket play at Lord's or the Oval, it is a test.
Paul challenge.
Didn't you have two plays
within... Playing and playing.
Played the first time and plays. Yes.
There's a few people out here who don't think that's the case. Did anybody record this? Because we play it back, we could work it out now.
Paul, it was an incorrect challenge. 7 seconds, still on testing times. Clement, starting now.
So testing times have to do with batting...
Paul, challenge.
Hesitation.
I think it was a hesitation. So you got him with 4 seconds to go on testing times, starting now.
So the Wright brothers...
Clement Freud can't.
That was hesitation.
Rubbish. He hadn't even been going for half a second.
Well, it was a repetition of my hesitation.
There was a second and a half. I've got it in front of me here, my little stopwatch. You have 3.5 seconds on testing times, Paul, starting now.
2 chickens walk into a pub and the first one says, "Excuse me, I would like a large..."
Well, it was testing times for Paul Merton. And Paul, it is your turn to begin. The subject is a close shave. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
First there was the razor, then the twin blade.
Peter Jones is challenged.
First there was the beard.
It was a lovely comment. No, but he didn't. I mean, he didn't actually deviate in that sense, Peter. But we did love the comment. So a bonus point to you, a point to Paul Merton because he was interrupted. 56 seconds available, Paul. A close shave starting now.
I have a three-bladed instrument at home that cuts beautifully. It's a recent invention. You may have seen it advertised. And I heartily recommend it because the technology tells...
Tony Hawks?
How do you heartily recommend something?
Heartily?
Heartily. You did say heartily instead of heartily.
Did I? Just because I've got a speech impediment, I don't see why that should count against me.
They are so keen to get their points, but I suppose you could say that was a deviation from English as we know it and normally speak it. I agree with your challenge, Tony. A close shave, 46 seconds, starting now.
I had a close shave about a year ago. I was travelling up...
Paul Merton challenge.
Clearly it wasn't today.
That's a nice comment. You have another bonus point over there to Paul Merton. But, Tony, you keep the subject and a point for being interrupted. 42 seconds, a close shave starting now.
I was making my way by train to a place called Alnwick, where we were going to do a recording of Just a Minute. And I failed to get off the train at the right...
A Clement Freud challenge.
Two trains.
Two trains. Right. It's a pity, it's a good story. Tell it at the end. Clement... Correct challenge, 30 seconds available, a close shave starting now.
Sir Henry Newbold wrote about a close. There's a breathless hush in the close tonight, tend to make and a match to win, a bumping pitch and a blinding night, an hour to play and the last man in. I won't go on much with this, but a close is a piece of territory which is enclosed, probably by a fence or some other...
Paul Merton challenged.
We haven't quite established a close shave.
No, we're now talking about a close, a little close.
Coming to the shave in a moment.
Well, we only have a minute, Clement.
You went... So I give it to Paul, and still you have 8 seconds, Paul. A close shave starting now.
Aboard Apollo 13, the 3 astronauts there could be described as people experiencing a close shave. If you saw the film, you will know they're...
Paul Merton was again speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so, and has increased his lead at the end of that round. Tony Hawks, your turn. And this subject is a long one, but it's a delightful one, I think. The best way to eat spaghetti. 60 seconds starting now.
This is something of a moot point, because there are lots of ways, obviously, to eat spaghetti, and someone might argue one was better than the other. I think someone might say that by having it on the body of a beautiful woman and eating it off would be the best way. My feeling, however...
Paul Merton challenge.
Too messy.
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
Might be messy, but it's not deviating from the subject. So,
well, I don't think it's the best way to eat spaghetti.
Well, if
you want to get out more.
If you're an international toy boy like Tony Hawks, then obviously this is one of his fetishes, and to him it's the best way. So I have to go with that idea. Tony, another point to you. 43 seconds.
Oh, did you say international toy boy?
Yes. 43 seconds. He's starting to work out already. The best way to eat spaghetti, Tony, starting now.
And the beauty of it is you don't have to do any washing up either. Unless you really want to, of course, you could make that fun too. I went to an Italian restaurant many years ago. It was quite embarrassing. I was sat...
Peter Jones challenge.
Did you take this woman with you?
Your mind's been working overtime like mine, Peter. Right. Peter, a bonus point to Peter because we enjoyed his comment then, but Tony wasn't deviating from the best way to eat spaghetti, so 32 seconds for you, Tony, with another point starting now.
And I wanted to impress her so I could take her back to my flat and do something interesting with spaghetti. However, eating it in the formal manner in which I was on this occasion, some of it got caught in my teeth, and I was also trying to suck it up.
Peter Jones' challenge.
Repetition of eating.
Yes, he was eating a bit too much there, yes. It was some of us getting indigestion, actually. 16 seconds for you, Peter, to tell us something about the best way to eat spaghetti starting now.
Well, just prod it with a fork and twirl it round until you've got a neat ball at the end, and then transfer it carefully to your mouth, whereupon you can chew it to your heart's content. And if it's al dente, as it should be, it takes slightly longer than if it's soggy and...
Sir Peter Jones was then speaking as the whistle went and gained that extra point for doing so, and he has leapt forward in that round. He's still in fourth place, but he is only 1 point behind Tony Hawks. He's only 2 points behind Clement Freud, but out in the lead still is Paul Merton. But Peter, it's your turn to begin. The subject is a moonlight flit. I don't know whether you've done one, but tell us something about that subject in this game starting now.
Well, no, I haven't done one, and I wouldn't dream of it, because if you flit at moonlight, then everybody can see you. It's a ridiculous time to leave. Much better to wait until it's got quite dark. Only a matter of a few days, and then you can slip out into the Pantechnicon or whatever vehicle you've engaged to take your belongings, and wait until the landlord or proprietor of the establishment you're trying to get away from is asleep, and then go. That's the best thing to do. I can't say much more about it, but...
Clement Freud came in first, which is it is hesitation, or have you got any other challenge?
Charity.
No, because he went for 23 seconds and we enjoyed it. So Moonlight Fit is now with you, Clement. 23 seconds available, starting now.
I think the most important thing about a moonlight flit is to have reasonable food in hand for the journey. And spaghetti is excellent. The best way to eat spaghetti is...
Paul Merton challenge.
Repetition of Beautiful Woman. Sorry, of spaghetti.
Oh, spaghetti, yes, right. Paul, the correct challenge, 10 seconds. A moonlight flit, starting now.
Well, of course, there was no lock on the outside toilet door, so I didn't know what to do. So in the end, I happened to find a torch, and I realised that I borrowed it off the man next door, and in fact...
Clement Freud challenge.
Deviation.
Why?
Grammar.
What grammar?
You don't borrow off.
Paul, it was an incorrect challenge. In speech, that's how we go, and you've got half a second to go on. A moonlight flit starting now.
It ain't necessarily so.
So Paul Merton has increased his lead at the end of that round, and Clement Freud, it's your turn to begin. The subject now is summer season. Tell us something about summer season, starting now.
The extraordinary thing about our summer season, be it Ascot, Lords, Wimbledon or Henley, is that it rains. It is wet, damp, sodden. Go where you will. Keats, a poet, wrote season of mists and mellow fruitfulness. He was not referring to summer. It was season after summer.
Paul Merton challenge.
Hesitation, I'm afraid.
I think so, Paul, yes. So you have 39 seconds to tell us something about summer season starting now.
The summer season is the best time to spot Tony Hawk's international toy boy as he wanders up and down the boulevards, catching the eyes of the ladies, playing a bit of tennis in the park, perhaps wandering out on the links and playing the ancient game of golf. What a wonderful figure he cuts. The women look at him, their hearts beat in their breasts. They can't believe it. Is it Tony Blair? Who?
Oh, what a pity you had to repeat, Tony, because they were enjoying it, weren't they? 18 seconds, you tell us something about summer season, Tony Hawk, starting now.
I did a marvellous summer season in Blackpool whilst...
Peter Jones challenge.
Boasting.
It's never been one of the rules of Just a Minute that you're not allowed to boast.
No, but who else would say I did a marvellous summer season?
So anybody who can say he's an international toy boy could boast about that. Oh, did a marvellous season. So, Peter, we enjoyed the challenge.
Well, he doesn't claim to be one. All he has claimed is to eat spaghetti off beautiful women's bodies.
Well, if that's not boasting, I don't know what is.
He might not have any plates. It might be a plea of poverty.
Anyway, you're allowed to boast in just a minute if you can get away with it. 14 seconds, summer season with you, Tony, starting now. And who's challenged? Paul.
He's never done a summer season at Blackpool.
I don't think he has either. I don't know for sure.
Well, hang on, for the sake of argument, I have.
All right.
For the sake of argument, you haven't.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, all right, I haven't.
Paul Merton, you have a correct challenge. 13 seconds, summer season starting now.
I once went to see a show at Blackpool about 1983. It starred Lenny Henry and David Copperfield, not the American magician, but an English comedian who was then appearing quite a lot on television. And it was a fantastic show. It was a...
Paul Merton was again speaking as the whistle went, so gained an extra point for doing so. And, Peter, it's your turn to begin. The subject, the shambles. Tell us something about the shambles in 60 seconds, starting now.
Well, I've heard of them, and I believe they used to house the abattoir for York, and it must have been one of the most attractive attractions that they had in this town, which is renowned for its bawdy houses and dens of iniquity of all kinds. And I guess people used to flock to this to see the animals being slaughtered, and then perhaps take bits home and cook them. And, as far as I remember...
Clement, you challenged.
That hesitation?
I think it was hesitation.
Was it?
Yes. The audience don't think it was. So, Clement, do you wish to forego your challenge?
Yes.
All right. You won this audience back in a flash, Clement. And they want Peter Jones. Will you continue having another point for 26 seconds on the shambles, starting now?
These gambling dens and places that I've mentioned were always fronted with very respectable-looking houses, so that only people in the underworld, whom I know very few, but they knew that things were going on inside, including this ritual slaughter that happened. And I suppose it appeals to some people.
So Peter Jones, much to the audience's pleasure and with the help of Clement Freud, staggered on, shambled on to the end on the subject of the shambles and gained that extra point for doing so. But all that hard work only brought you 2 points, Peter. But anyway, we loved hearing from you. It was very nice. So we have time for one more round. And Clement Freud, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is a good bedside manner. Will you go on that subject if you can for 60 seconds, starting now?
Dr. Crippen had a particularly good bedside manner. Never did he visit a patient without bringing chocolates and flowers, sitting on the sofa or a chair by the side of the bed and reciting poetry, asking after the patient's children.
Paul Merton challenge.
It's not, to me, a sign of a good doctor that he comes round and recites poetry at you. I would expect a physical examination.
Yeah.
I think it's deviation. I think that's good medical practice.
No, and also bringing the chocolates, I agree, would not be good medical practice.
But we're not talking about medical practice.
A good bedside manner we were talking about?
Yeah.
Well, that's not a good bedside manner. My father was a doctor. He'd never taken a box of chocolates to his patients.
He never would do. He was too good a doctor to do that.
Of course he was. Excellent bedside manner.
He was proud of his bedside manner. You tell him, Nicholas.
Yes.
You tell him.
Well, I'm with Clement on this one. I think it's a very good bedside manner to turn up. I don't think you should be allowed to get away with it.
What happens if your patient's got diabetes? Fill them up with chocolates.
Well, you get...
Oh, he's allergic to flowers.
Yes. Maybe
he's good enough
suffers
to
from
come
hay
up,
fever.
if he can come up with a rhyme for diabetes, he's a bloody good poet as well.
Dr. Hawley Harley Crippen,
Yes.
of whom I've made a lifelong study, never made house visits or calls. The patients had to go to his surgery, where usually they were operated on for some dental problem, because he was primarily a dentist. And in any case, his wife, Belle...
Avoid your challenge.
Deviation.
Deviation, yes. The deviation because you didn't actually have the subject, Peter.
Well, give him the subject so he can carry on.
Well, you want it. Can you want
no,
it?
give that
Give
Peter.
it back. Right, give it to Peter.
I think,
All
it's,
right.
I think it's a great idea just to randomly start talking to him. I'm going to do it in my life from now on.
It's a new way.
I agree with Tony, and I'm randomly starting. I'm carrying on from Tony, so how much longer have I got left?
Repetition of Tony.
Tony, it's a new way of playing the game, but you won't get away with it more than once. But, Peter, they've let you get away with it this time. You've got a point then for being interrupted when you hadn't got the subject. And Paul Merton says he doesn't want the subject back, even though he's entitled to have it. And there are 33 seconds available for a good bedside manner with you, Peter, starting now.
His wife was Belle Elmore, a third-rate music hall singer. But he was having an affair with a younger person. And he managed to show his flair for bedside manners in her company. Because to be able to have a manner that is appealing beside the bed is a tremendous advantage once you get into the bed.
Well, that particular flourish of Peter Jones's, taking the subject arbitrarily without any permission, and going so magnificently, and finishing up with that delightful image of getting into the bed, having had the bedside manner to seduce the lady from beside the bed, brought not only that round to a close, so he got a bonus point for speaking when the whistle went, but also has brought the show to a close, alas. Let me give you the final situation, because Peter, with that last final flash, leapt forward. He really did leap this time, and he's finished up with Tony Hawks and Clement Freud. They're all three equal in second place, but way out ahead by quite a few points. This week is Paul Merton, so we say, Paul, you're the winner this week. So it only remains for me to say thank you to these four clever and exciting players of the game. That is Paul Merton, Tony Hawks, Peter Jones and Clement Freud. I also thank Jane Gibson for helping me with the score and blowing the whistle so well. We also thank Ian Messiter, who created the game and keeps us all so happy playing it, and particularly our producer, Chris Neal. And also I'd love to thank this marvellous audience here who've egged us on the way magnificently. We thank you from the audience, from the panel, from me, Nicholas Parsons. Goodbye. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the Minute Waltz fades away once more, it is my pleasure to welcome our many listeners throughout the world, but also the four talented, diverse personalities who this week are going to play Just a Minute. We welcome back one of the much-loved players of the game, Peter Jones, one of the highly appreciated and entertaining players of the game, Jenny Eclair, one of the most erudite and sophisticated players of the game, Kit Hesketh-Harvey, and one of the other most amusing players of the game, Stephen Frost. Will you please welcome all four of them?
As usual, I am going to ask them to speak on the subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. Beside me sits Jane Gibson, who's going to help me keep the score. She's going to hold the stopwatch. She'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Oxford Union in this wonderful ancient seat of learning here in the Midlands. And I hope you're going to cheer us on our way as we start the show this week with Kit Hesketh-Harvey, and the subject, Kit, is mother tongue. Tell us something about that subject, starting now.
There is a perfectly disgusting joke which runs, what is the definition of gross? It is when kissing your grandmother to slip her the tongue. But I don't believe that that's what Mr. Mester had in mind when he gave me this subject. He was thinking of the lingua franca, which in my case was Chinyanja, a little spoken dialect in East Africa where I was raised, of which I can remember but one word, Chimbuzi, which means lavatory, a very nebulous concept in that part of the dark continent. I was dispatched over to these islands, thank God, to learn Oxford English, the tongue of Shakespeare and Janet Street Porter, the tongue of Milton and Lloyd Grossman.
Jenny, you pressed your...
Yes, he was being incredibly clever, but then he just ran out of steam.
I stopped.
He did what?
He just ran out of steam, Nicholas.
So what are you saying? He's hesitating?
No, yes. He came to a grinding halt.
No, he didn't actually hesitate, Jenny. So I have to interpret to say, no, it was not hesitation. So he gets a point for being interrupted. So, Kit, you carry on with the subject, and there are 17 seconds available, starting now.
Monica Lewinsky had the mother of tongues, and I can... only imagine. No, I'm sorry, I really have run out. I can't
So, Jenny, you got it this time. Yeah, this week did run out.
Thank you, Jenny.
Right.
Thank you, Jenny.
So, very justifiably, Jenny came in first on the hesitation. Mother tongue with you, Jenny. 9 seconds starting now.
My mother tongue is English, which I speak almost like a native. It also sounds like one of those dodgy fringe productions that you'd go see and it would be translated from the Russian. It'd be about loads.
Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point on this occasion. It was Jenny Eclair who got another point in the round for a correct challenge, so naturally she's in the lead at the end of that round. Peter Jones, we'd like you to take the next round. The subject, the union. Tell us something about that. 60 seconds starting now.
Well, the only union I can really talk about for any length of time is the Equity, which is the actors' union, and I've belonged to it for many years and haven't enjoyed a lot of it. But they have annual meetings which are very rowdy and everybody shows off and is really auditioning for some part that they think they're going to get if
Sorry. Kit Hesketh-Harvey.
Sorry, he told somebody to interrupt him, so I did.
What? You actually hesitated, Peter.
Yes, I did.
I know, yes.
I knew I hesitated.
You did. Now, why don't you challenge yourself, then? It's been done before.
That's why it would be repetition.
Kit, a point to you for the challenge of hesitation, and you take over 35 seconds, the union starting now.
What with Scottish devolution almost upon us, the union is in peril. All over the north of England they're building Anderson shelters, ready for when Moira starts singing again. And we shall have a new Union Jack, probably with all the charisma of a party conference logo. Farewell to the crosses of St. George, Patrick, and the other one, David. Andrew.
Stephen Frost challenge.
Hesitation there.
There was, yes. 14 seconds. Stephen, correct challenge, and the subject, the union, starting now.
I knew a vegetable that used to ride on a bicycle with one wheel. It was called a union, and he got lots of laughs when he did his show. Unlike now, because
Please don't challenge.
Is he talking about a vegetable?
Yes, a vegetable.
you see, it was an onion on a unicycle, and it was called a union.
But I still think it was devious, don't you, Peter?
I do, yes.
Yes, good, right. 6 seconds for you, Peter. The union starting now.
I remember Dame Sybil Thorndike addressing the Equity Union, and she was booed, and I was...
At the end of that round, what has happened? Peter Jones, speaking as a whistle-wind, gained a point for doing so. He's equal to Stephen Frost. They're just behind, 1 point behind Kit Hesketh-Harvey, and 1 point behind Jenny Eclair, who's in the lead. It's all very, very close, and Stephen, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is breaking the mould. Tell us something about that in just a minute, if you can, starting now.
A green jelly carrot
just knew it, didn't you? Was it the thought of the green jelly or the...
Thinking too fast, you see. Do you want me to tell you what I was going to say?
Yes, tell us what you're going to say.
Green jelly rabbit. Without any ears, because the mould's been broken, you see. And the carrot, the rabbit, and, word is so tired.
Jenny, yes, hesitation. 56 seconds. Breaking the mould starting now.
Yes, it's very easy to break one of those porcelain jelly moulds, especially when you're trying to get said wobbly pudding out of contraption. Bang, bang! Wallop,
Yes, you challenged, yes.
Repetition of both bang and wallop.
Yes, you did repeat bang, I'm afraid, yes, right. 47 seconds, breaking the mould with you, Kit, starting now.
Take That always wanted to break America. We wanted to break their records. But for any actor...
Stephen Frost.
2 breaks.
42 seconds, Stephen, breaking the mould starting now.
A yellow, myxomatosis-ridden animal with no hearing.
Kit Hesketh-Harvey challenged.
He stopped again.
I know. Talk sense in future, Stephen. It's probably easier. Kit, 37 seconds, breaking the mould starting now.
Fantastic little theatre and...
Peter Jones challenge.
Well, he hesitated.
Did he? Well, no, he actually made a noise, which was supposed to be a town in Wales.
Didn't sound like one to me.
No. It didn't sound like one to me, so I'm going to say that was deviation, Peter.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, good. Right. And you have 33 seconds on breaking the mould, starting now.
If you ever open an old tin of jam or jar, you find that there is a mould on the top of it. Now, it's very important to try to get it off before you eat the jam. Otherwise, if you break it...
Kit Hesketh-Harvey challenge.
Too much jam.
There's too much jam. 21 seconds. Breaking the mould with you, Kit, starting now.
One of the proud boast of Shirley Williams of Chwilch, or whether she is now, who was going to break the mould with her Liberal Party SDP spin-off. Where is it now? Where am I now? I'm beginning to wonder.
Stephen Frost has challenged. Peter Jones has challenged. The lights
of now.
Yes, I know, but Peter's light came on first, unfortunately.
No. Where is she now? Where am I now? That's Peter.
Who's running this show?
You're Nicholas
Listen,
Clark.
all I can tell you that Stephen's light came on first, and then Peter's flashed on immediately after.
Anyway, I was terribly wrong.
But I know you were, but... So, Stephen, you actually had the correct challenge because you came in first, and there are 8 seconds on breaking the mould starting now.
When I was a little boy, I was in my kitchen's...
So the mould's got broken.
No, wait a minute, darling. What was your challenge? I want to make sure I agree with it.
He hesitated.
Yes, he did hesitate, but you might have said deviation.
I wouldn't have done that, Nicholas.
No, all right. 5 seconds, breaking the mould, Tony, starting now.
So when the mould gets broken, there's bits of china in the child's jelly. She looks at you as if to say, oh, thanks, Mum, you've spoiled another birthday party.
So, Jenny, Eclair was speaking then when the whistle went. I think Jane Gibson has been blowing it so vociferously for us. I think her pee in this whistle's got a bit damp, actually, because it wasn't quite so strong that time. But anyway, Kit, it's your turn to begin. Kit Hesketh-Harvey. Yes. Oh, what an apt subject for being here in Oxford. Boat race. Tell us something about boat race starting now. A Cambridge man in Oxford. Tell us something about the boat race, Kit, starting now. Oh, you're not going to do it. Peter, you Peter, 2 seconds. He didn't do anything at all. So that was very quick of you. Well done. Boat race, 58 seconds starting now.
When I watch the boat race live, the only time I've ever done so, usually I see it on television, but I went to Chiswick, and do you know that both sides sank? It was so very rough, and they were...
Kit Hesketh-Harvey.
Hesitation.
Yes, hesitation, that definitely was. So, boat race, it's back with you, Kit, and you have 44 seconds starting now.
You all know the sort of thing, 8 men, little cocks, engaged in Homeric struggle. It's very homoerotic, the whole thing. Pull, stroke, in, out, as the fumes crack the back strain, and they plunge into each other's quarters repeatedly through Hammersmith, which always struck me as rather a strange setting for so august a contest. You know the film, I'm sure, starring Dan Topolsky or his alter ego.
Jenny Eclair challenge.
Repetition of or.
We can't have too many ors in this show, can we? No, we've gone far enough already. Jenny, yes, he did repeat or too often. 16 seconds, boat race, starting now.
Boat race is obviously Cockney rhyming slang for face. In the 70s, there was a pop song that went, nice legs, shame about the boat race, which was, ha-ha, very funny, until people sang it in your face when you walked past the disco.
Kid is challenging.
Can I say ha-ha-ha?
Yeah.
Yes,
Repetition of harm.
It's repetition of harm, I'm afraid. So, Kit, you got back in 7 seconds, boat race starting now.
There's a magnificent scene at the end of Zuleika Dobson, Max Beerbohm's great novella about this fantastic university where the entire undergraduate population commit lemming-like suicide.
So, Kit Hesketh-Harvey going with style on boat race, having lost his way at the beginning, when with his erotic images he created there, I'll never look at the boat race again in quite the same light. And kept going, of course, to the whistle when gained that extra point. He's now 1 point ahead of Jenny Eclair in second place, so he's in the lead, and Jenny, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is focus groups. Can you tell us something about that weird subject starting now?
Focus groups are the scourge of the late 20th century, made up by mealy-mouthed, spineless middle management who... I don't know anything about them, Christopher.
Kit, you challenge first.
No, she collapsed
I know. 52 seconds. Yes. Focus groups, Kit, starting now.
They're so ghastly I can't even bear to talk about them.
Peter, you challenge.
Well, if he can't bear to talk about them, I'll try.
Well, it was certainly hesitation, Peter. So the 49 seconds, can you tell us something about focus groups starting now?
They are groups of people from all walks of life who are gathered together by our Prime Minister very often, who puts some question to them, what do you think I should do, or the rest of the Cabinet should do.
And
yes.
Jenny said, yes.
To-dos.
They were doing too much, I'm afraid.
Yes.
To-dos.
And Jenny, you've got in focus groups, the subject you don't want. 36 seconds starting now.
So you never had focus groups in the olden days to get some fat old bloke smoking his cigar with a secretary on his knee, barking out orders. I blame New Labour, I actually do. It's all this, I want approval. It's really pathetic, isn't it? I don't know. Please, somebody save me. Is there anyone in the audience?
Stephen, you've challenged.
Well, sorry, no, after you, please.
No, after you.
I don't want it. 2 ers.
That's right, yeah. But do you want it? I mean,
yeah, I'll take it. I can have it. I can do it. How many seconds have I got left?
Not you got it. There are available 17 seconds. Focus group, Stephen, starting now.
Welcome to them.
Focus groups. Blur are not a focus group. Obviously, by the name, that makes sure they're a group and they're not in focus. It's a joke. I said it. That's the sort of thing I do. There was a group in the late 70s called Focus. They were Greek, I think.
Peter Jones challenged.
He hesitated before he said Greek.
I know he did, Peter.
Because of the Dutch. I've got that.
Yes, but you say as if I wasn't going to agree with you. 6 seconds, Peter.
Never know.
Focus group is with you starting now.
The old Focus at Home, that's what they call them at Downing Street, and they get all these ridiculous people together.
So Peter Jones was again speaking to whistle when gained that extra point for doing so. He's in third place, only just behind Jenny Eclair. 1 point ahead of Jenny is Kit Hesketh-Harvey, our leader. Stephen is trailing a little, and whose turn is to begin? It's Peter. It's your turn to begin.
Oh.
And yes, it is, definitely. And the subject is a special skill. Tell us something about that in just a minute if you can, starting now.
I think juggling is a very special skill. And the masters of that skill are, in my mind, W.C. Fields and a man called Monsieur Eddie Gray, who was the 7th member of the famous Crazy Gang. There was also a man called Don Murray from Australia, and he was able to juggle while he was riding a unicycle. And he could put 6 saucers and...
Oh, Jenny, yes.
He hesitated.
I know, it was so...
It was beautiful, but...
I know, it's giving us a dissertation on the old variety world. Right. Jenny, you've got in with 30 seconds to tell us something about a special skill starting now.
My old special skill used to be the ability to pick a credit card up off the floor using just my teeth, hands tied behind my back. However, unfortunately, these days can't do it anymore, and all I can do is dribble in bed. I knew a girl...
So she ummed. I'm sorry.
I don't think it was a real hesitation.
You give it to her.
No,
give it to her.
I think it was a sort of illusion of speech. Jenny, a special skill. 17 seconds available starting now.
I knew a girl called Shona Norris. She could draw horses' heads. That was her special skill. Another girl called Anne Robertson could burn.
Stephen Frost. Another repetition.
There were two of
them. Stephen, you've got him with 11 seconds on this subject of special skill starting now.
When I'm in the supermarket, old ladies come up to me and said, could you hand down that carton off the top shelf for me, please? That's my special skill because I am so tall. I hang around in these shops where people want things to buy and...
So Stephen got points in that round, including one for speaking as the whistle went, so he's now equal Peter Jones in third place behind the other two. And Stephen, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is The Life I Wish I Had Led. Can you tell us something about that involved subject? 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
The life I wish I had led was that of a swashbuckler, a pirate on the high seas, fighting across the water, getting treasure wherever he went, killing people so that you would make more money from them as if you had an ordinary job. For me, this would be great. Out there under the blue skies, the wind blowing in my hair. Of course.
Is there any Eclair, Charles?
Well, he hasn't got any.
No, I think actually, Jane, to be fair, you see, this was his image of what the life he wished he'd led.
Of course, yes.
And if he'd led that life and it's a wish fulfillment, he would have had the hair as well, wouldn't he? So, 40 seconds. Stephen, I disagree with the challenge. The life I wish I had led starting now.
Then I'd drop my anchor in some Caribbean port and go ashore and then spend everything I'd got, my ill-getting gains, on rum.
Kit Hesketh-Harvey.
Gains?
Ill-getting gains is slightly different, yes.
Yeah.
Slight deviation from English as we understand it, actually.
That's how pirates say it. I got some ill-gotten gains. They don't say, oh, I've got some ill-gotten gains. I'm a pirate, do they? They wouldn't be pirates then, would they?
Oh, you give me an impossible decision, but I think I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Kit, I'm say 32 seconds. The life I wish I'd led starting now.
I rather wish I'd been the Emperor Caligula, decadent, depraved, debauched, vicious, brutal, ransacking the treasury.
Stephen Frost, challenge.
Deviation he is.
So we give Stephen a bonus point because the audience seemed to appreciate his particular joke, but Kit gets a point for being interrupted. He keeps the subject 25 seconds. The life I wish I'd led, Kit, starting now.
Enjoying long hours of fathomless sexual debauchery. But if I had had a decent focus group, I could have gone to somebody like Alistair Campbell and say, tell them I'm a nice person who's sweet to his horse, and posterity would have thought differently of me. There might be a university named after me. Or not.
Hesitation and repetition of me. Me.
It does bring out all the best in them, doesn't it, this show? Jenny, a correct challenge, 5 seconds. The life I wish I'd led starting now.
The life I wish I'd led was a glamorous life, full of getting engaged on balconies while pianos tinkled in the background.
So Jenny Eclair was speaking as the whistle went, which is slowly deteriorating, the whistle sound. And it's nothing to do with Jane Gibson, by the way. I think it's a BBC whistle that's got a damp P in its core. That's all and Jenny, you are still in the lead, just one ahead of Kit, and 3 or 4 ahead of Stephen Frost and Peter Jones. And Kit Hesketh-Harvey, your turn to begin. The subject, rhyming couplets. Talk on it, 60 seconds starting now.
When I gaze at Stephen Frost, he flecks his pecs and I am lost. Look again at Miss Eclair. By Jove, she's got a lovely pear tumble recipe. Even Peter Jones, there's still some flesh on them old bones. But when I look at Nicholas Parsons, all I see is a right royal are some examples of the rhyming couplets which daily I as fit and the widows, waiting for the day when Prime Minister Blair will put me on the shoulder and say, be poet laureate, because we need one. Pam Ayres can't do it. She's a woman. Tony Harrison is too talented. Andrew Motion really wants the gig, but the thought of no state occasion passing without a motion to go with it is...
Jenny, you challenge.
You did say 2 motions.
I know, and he went for 53 seconds.
Yeah, no.
To do rhyming couplets off the top of your head like that and keep going, I mean, that really was well over and above the call of duty within the confines of this show. And then he loses the subject, then he gets a point, has 7 seconds. I think we'll give him a bonus point for the rhyming couplets. Jenny has a point for a correct challenge. 7 seconds available. Rhyming couplet starting now.
1, 2, buckle my shoe. 3, 4, knock at the door. 5, 6, pick up sticks. 7, 8, ladies straight.
It was a much easier way, wasn't it, kid? And she going for 7 seconds, get an extra point for speaking as the whistle went, and has increased her lead at the end of the round. And Jenny, it's your turn to begin. The subject, a mug's game. Tell us something about that in just a minute, starting now.
Every job I've ever done has been in mug.
Kit.
Sorry, hesitation.
It was a hesitation. 57 seconds, a mug's game, Kit, starting now.
I'm particularly fond of those mugs which show a diaphanously clad nymphette in the later stages of arousal, but covered with a veil of discretion, which, however, when you fill it with hot water, miraculously disappears, and lo, there she is, clad as nature intended in all her glory. I play this game for hours and hours, hours.
Stephen Frost, you challenge.
Hours
and hours. 37 seconds, a mug's game with you, Stephen, starting now.
All kinds of mugs games. Playing chess with teacups is not one of them. Gambling is a mug's game. I gamble myself.
And so, Peter, you challenged.
Yes. He said,
And also repeated gamble.
Yes, gamble.
Gamble, right. 29 seconds, Peter. A mug's game starting now.
Well, I agree that gambling is probably a mug's game because only the tote or the bookmakers seem to win in the end if you go on long enough. And I never have. But I've nothing much to say, really, about this subject.
You want to stop now, are you?
Yes, a dignified stop rather than a hesitation.
So nobody's going to challenge you. Well, have I got to finish the subject then?
Why not? Very good.
Some people could describe it as a mug's game to take on the chairmanship of Just a Minute and have 4 talented, highly diverse, intelligent people taking the mickey out of you the whole time, putting you down, being the fool guy. But as a good straight man in show business, I throw out the cues and the lines. Who challenged me?
So, straight man.
I was speaking professionally. My private life doesn't come into this in any way. Right, what is the situation as we go into the last round? Well, Jenny is just in the lead, only 1 point ahead of Kit Hesketh-Harvey. And then just a few points behind is Stephen Frost and Peter Jones in that order. And Peter, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is the hardest lesson of all. And there are 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I suppose the hardest lesson of all to learn is when to stop or leave the party. Say goodbye, farewell, and thank you very much indeed. And not everybody present knows this lesson, has learned it. For instance...
Jenny, you challenge.
He hesitated.
There was a definite yes. Jenny, another point to you. You're equal with... no, you're not. You want to head it further now, aren't you? 42 seconds. The hardest lesson of all, starting now.
The hardest lesson of all is double maths on a Friday afternoon. Sitting in that sweaty...
Stephen Frost challenge.
Repetition, maths. She had double maths. It's the only way I'm going to get any points on this.
No, Stephen, those sort of remarks get you bonus points. The audience love it. Right. Another point to Stephen. Jenny carries on, and there are 36 seconds. The hardest lesson of all, starting now.
Sitting in that stale fart-smelling room, thinking, what is P over 3 times pi squared? I don't know. I just want to get ready to go to the disco, for heaven's sake. So boring, maths. The other...
Kit Hesketh-Harvey.
Maths, repeated.
Yeah.
Maths, yes. Double maths before.
I also got a bit dull.
Yeah, but you can't be challenged for that. I mean...
I should be.
No, you can never be dull, Jenny. Right. Kit, you've got him with the correct challenge. 24 seconds available. The hardest lesson of all, starting now.
Deuteronomy has got some real beasts in it. Not only genealogical tables which go on eternally, but a tricky passage about sucking pigs, which, if you've got an old Bible in which the S's are printed as F's, can be a minefield for anybody reading the lesson in a cathedral or place of worship. I had a lovely old canon, Ball he was called, in my cathedral. I've said cathedral.
No, Jenny got in with half a second to go. You shouldn't have drawn attention to his kick. So, Jenny, he repeated cathedral. You got in half a second to go. Another point, half a second. The hardest lesson of all, starting now.
The hardest lesson of all?
It just remains me to give you the final sort of roundup as regards the points that were won and lost and gained and so forth. And Peter Jones, who's given such value over the years, came only just in 4th place behind Stephen Frost. And then Kit Hesketh-Harvey, with all his dubious thoughts and entertaining ideas and insults to the chairman as well, came in 2nd place. But 4 points ahead of him, out in the lead, was the lady who did so well last time, has come back to triumph, undoubtedly ahead of all the others. Janie Eclair, the winner. A popular winner. They're probably getting their notebooks out now. I'm going to ask her to come and address the union at some particular point. Yes, probably on double maths or something. But only remains for me to say, to thank these 4 talented players of the game, Janie Eclair, Kit Hesketh-Harvey, Peter Jones and Stephen Frost. I thank Jane Gibson for keeping the score for me so magnificently and delicately blowing her whistle there. We thank Chris Neal, our producer and director, for keeping us all in order and running the show so well. And, of course, Ian Mester, who created Just a Minute. And particularly, we thank this audience here at the Oxford Union who've come from all the different colleges and the byways of this great city of dreaming Spires to egg us on our way and enjoy us. We have been a wonderful, warm, vociferous audience, which we love. Thank you, and from me, Nicholas Parsons, to all of them, and to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show. Be with us next time we take the air and play Just a Minute. Till then, goodbye.